Wherever this absolute unit goes, pure panic follows. Honestly, it is mostly because of his massive size, all thanks to his barbarian genes. Even the Emperor lost his mind after returning from those frozen lands. We are talking about a wasteland with terrifying beasts that cause earthquakes and poison entire rivers. But the absolute worst thing out there? The absurdly overpowered barbarian race that lives there. They possess absolute power. To give you an idea of how broken they are, our main character once cleared a dungeon with normal humans. Sure, those guys were decent, but they were still just regular humans. Apparently, those humans needed multiple precise strikes to the neck just to take down a basic skeleton. Meanwhile, our boy literally vaporizes them with a single finger like it is absolutely nothing. The dungeon boss was not even supposed to be in that zone because it was way too strong. Only high-level masters stood a chance against a monster like that. Yet, this barbarian deletes it with one punch. That is the insane level of power we are talking about. Even human women and elves cannot control themselves around him. True strength is a total lady magnet because they want big, strong babies. Take this legendary master swordsman, a famous hero across the kingdom. He gets thrashed like a low-level bandit, totally clowned on. So, let me tell you how our boy became this ridiculously strong. And while we are at it, I will give you a quick breakdown of this crazy world. See, our main character used to dread his boring life, constantly wishing he could wake up in an epic fantasy world. He even quit his job just to search for a portal. Then, his wish actually came true, but with a massive catch. It was a complete nightmare. He reincarnated as a giant barbarian named Kettle and got dropped straight into a freezing hellscape called the White Wasteland, crawling with overpowered monsters. For years, he has been stuck here while a weird system keeps repeating the same message. Quest complete. Now, today starts just like any other miserable day in this frozen wasteland. Two barbarians slay a giant scorpion and start butchering it. Then Kettle walks up, eyes glowing purple as he slices the remaining monsters to pieces. He sighs, grumbling that only barbarians could be proud of being so clueless. The girl just blinks and asks what clueless is and if they can eat it. Before he can answer, they start devouring the nasty, stringy monster meat like it is some gourmet feast. It has not even been a week, and they are doing this again. The girl and the bald guy proudly give him a thumbs up, calling it a noble challenge. But then, the bald guy suddenly freezes. His body starts shaking and foam spills from his mouth. A second later, he drops and vomits green bile. The girl panics and keeps hitting him, but Kettle has had absolutely enough. He turns away, muttering that he is going for a walk. Somewhere else in this frozen hell, a band of mercenaries keeps marching forward. One complains about the freezing cold, while another swears crossing this wasteland is absolute suicide, regardless of the pay. Their captain quickly shuts them up. They all knew what they signed up for, even if none expected it to be this terrible. Inside a cozy carriage, an old butler listens to all the whining. Clearing his throat, he turns to his passenger and asks if she is doing all right, my lady. The woman, Melina Akasha, smiles and tells him she is perfectly fine. While the butler complains about the hired guards being so rude, Melina tells him to go easy on them. They were the only group brave enough to take this job. She worries they look half frozen out there and suggests letting them inside, but he quickly shuts it down, reminding her of the terrifying local legends. Melina goes quiet. When she brings up the monsters, the butler says the actual threat is far worse. He mentions the Emperor, the only human to ever make it out of this frozen hell alive. That ruler returned home babbling about terrifying beasts like massive serpents and giant bears that could shake the ground. But his ultimate warning was simple. The beasts were not the real threat out here. It was the barbarians. The butler laughs it off as a fairy tale, but Melina is not entirely convinced, especially since those warning monsters actually turned out to be real. Still, the old man chuckles, pointing out that nobody has ever actually laid eyes on a real barbarian. She cannot really argue with that logic. Suddenly, the mercenary captain barks a command to halt. He warns that something is out there, while another guard asks what he sees. Straining their eyes through the blizzard, they spot a lone silhouette, but it is still too blurry to recognize. The captain tenses up, telling the crew he has got good news and bad news. When they tell him to spit it out, he says the good news is that it is small. The bad news is, it is heading straight for them. Immediately, everyone gets extremely defensive. The captain draws his blade as the shadow approaches, but when he finally gets a clear look, it is not a monster, it is a person. The man continues stepping forward, and they suddenly realize it is Kettle. He pauses, staring them down with glowing purple eyes. The mercenaries freeze in shock as the terrifying truth hits. A barbarian, just like legends. Kettle just grins. Honestly, he only went for a stroll because his tribe was boring him to death. Now, He introduces himself as Kettle, the Ashen Barbarian, politely saying he is pleased to meet them. Sizing them up, he figures they are wealthy merchants with some hired swords. He casually advises them to head home, fully aware they will ignore him. His gaze then locks onto the carriage. The captain begins to panic, but Kettle just grins and drops an absolute curveball. Hire him. He suggests guiding them through the wastes, and honestly, you and I both know they need it. Kettle smiles, saying if he were, it would all be dead already. Talk about an icy response. The terrified guards are left utterly speechless. The captain knocks on the carriage, asking his lady if she heard all that. Melina confirms she did, leaving the choice to her, and she immediately asks the only question that actually matters. What happens if they fight him? Sizing Kettle up, the captain gives his brutally honest advice. He strongly warns against it. After a short pause, Melina decides to hire the giant. The captain returns to Kettle with her verdict. She accepted, and Kettle's eyes glow with a dark smile. To him, this is fantastic news. He steps forward, making the mercenaries flinch in fear. Now, he demands to speak directly to the person in charge. The captain warns him to behave, but Kettle just maintains his chill, terrifying grin. With no other choice, the captain escorts him straight to the carriage, ignoring his men's loud protests. Their employer already gave the green light, and fighting Kettle is basically a death wish. Inside, the butler is panicking, but Melina tells him to keep his cool. Suddenly, Kettle knocks and politely asks if he can enter. The old butler lets out a hilarious, high-pitched shriek, while Melina calmly tells him to enter. Outside, Kettle smiles to himself. His little plan worked like a charm. The old butler is drenched in sweat and utterly terrified. Across from him, Kettle sits calmly with arms crossed, speaking much softer than expected as he tells the old man to relax. He insists he has zero intention of hurting them, though the old man clearly does not buy it. Meanwhile, Melina can only stare, completely starstruck that a legendary barbarian is sitting right in front of her. She awkwardly welcomes him, and he smoothly replies that the pleasure is entirely his. Kettle points out how warm the carriage is despite the blizzard outside, and the blue-haired lady explains it is because of magic, instantly capturing his attention. He has never witnessed real magic in his life. He then warns them that their survival chances are slim, which is why he will protect them. But there is a catch. He demands a single condition. Pretty nervous, she asks what he wants. Kettle smiles and reveals his price. He does not want gold or glory, just pure information about the civilized world beyond these snowfields. That completely throws her for a loop. Is that all? She wonders. He nods, knowing she is getting a massive steal here. Since she has no other choice anyway, she agrees. Satisfied, he asks her name. She introduces herself formally as Melina of House Akasha. He responds with his own alias, Keel, and the bargain is sealed. A quick flashback reveals his past life as a massive fantasy nerd, obsessed with books and video games. Then, out of nowhere, he woke up as a barbarian in this brutal tundra. He had zero time to freak out. The cold was lethal, and monsters were everywhere. So, he fought, survived, and eventually rose to become the chief of his tribe. His goal was always to escape this frozen prison. Yet, every single time he tried to cross the border, a system pop-up declared the quest incomplete. Just as he was about to give up, people from the outside finally showed up. That is when he realized the world beyond this snowy prison was the dream fantasy you and I would kill for. From then on, alright, you and I are about to see this man stop just surviving and start grinding quests like crazy. His goal? Escaping this icy wasteland. That is why outside info is gold. Literally everyone else he meets in this frozen wasteland is either a psychopath attacking on sight or has completely lost their mind. So, he is actually enjoying a normal chat until he switches gears. He notices they are hauling a ridiculous amount of weapons. Hearing the swords rattling, he asks straight up if a war is raging outside. Melina confirms his suspicion the Empire and Kingdom are clashing. Yep, the world outside this glacier is just as chaotic. She explains the Empire has massive armies, but the Kingdom holds their ground thanks to legendary swordmasters and a hero. Instantly, Kettle is hooked. A hero? A swordmaster? He needs to know exactly how strong these guys are. Realizing he is clueless, Melina asks if he even knows what a mystery is, before dropping the power system lore. Basically, everything runs on this energy called mystery. Only a select few can wield it, divided into 5 ranks. Starting at third rate, where people can barely feel the power but cannot use it. Second rate is where they actually start weaponizing it. Then first rate, the standard elite knights and mages who transform that raw power into lethal mana or aura. But things get crazy above that. Beings who shatter human limits are called transcendent, strong enough to literally split the skies. The swordmasters fit right here. And at the absolute peak is the legendary hero, who can reshape reality. She notes even a low-tier third-rate user would be a big deal in some random village. After hearing this whole explanation, Kettle has just one simple response: he wants to go and fight them. Melina is absolutely speechless. The guy is dead serious. He has been trapped in this icy hell for ages, fighting a brutal war of survival. To him, this whole fantasy world is just a cage. All he wants is to break free and see what lies beyond. With absolute determination on his face, he says he really wants out. Then he corrects himself with a smug little grin. No, scratch that. He has to escape. As the carriage rolls on, Melina finally asks the question burning in her mind. Is he really that legendary barbarian? He does not even deny it, guessing she already knows his name. She admits she does, recognizing him straight out of ancient lore. Now Kettle is the one shocked. A legend? Melina can't believe he is clueless about his own reputation. He just chuckles, remembering a crazy guy. Wait, so that random knight he met was actually the Emperor? Hilarious. Shrugging it off, he admits the legend is probably close enough to the truth, then pivots back to the real question: the weapons cargo. Why haul this massive armory through a frozen wasteland? She tries to dodge the question, but under Kettle's terrifying, soul-piercing gaze, she folds instantly. Turns out, her family is broke and desperately needs cash. They used to be rich merchants until rivals bankrupted them, leaving them in massive debt. Kettle connects the dots instantly. She is smuggling weapons to the kingdom to fuel their war against the Empire. It is basic math. The Empire already has massive forces, so they do not need her gear. The desperate kingdom does. High demand, low supply, meaning the profits must be absolutely insane. Safe to say, crazy profit justifies risking her life. He even guesses her homeland borders the Empire, forcing her to take this suicidal, freezing path. Melina is completely dumbfounded, realizing he is 10 steps ahead of her. She is totally rattled. The legends painted him as some brainless, muscle-bound savage, but this guy has a big brain. Who is he really? Before she can ask, the carriage suddenly screeches to a violent halt. A horrifying shriek echoes through the air, sending the guards into a panic, but Kettle stays chill. He already felt the threat. Seconds later, a colossal black slime explodes from the deep snow. The entire convoy paralyzes in terror. Kettle just narrows his eyes while Melina panics, confirming this is a mythical calamity. She gasps that this snowy wasteland is a graveyard for elite warriors, and the few survivors who escaped always warned everyone to avoid this beast. But Kettle just smirks like a total troll, saying these things are actually pretty chewy and make great snacks. Wait, what? He actually eats them. He casually tells her to grab a bite if she is curious, leaving her utterly speechless. But the monster is not here for culinary reviews. Screaming, it charges directly at them. As the guards lose their minds, Melina begs Kettle to save them. But our protagonist does not budge. He just crosses his arms, saying he only steps in when things get actually dangerous. Brutal. To her absolute shock, he tells her the mercenaries should handle it. He wants to see what these outside world fighters are made of. The slime lunges, and the captain orders a defensive shield wall. A brave soldier raises his shield just in time to block the impact, but the brute force is too much. He is blasted backward like a rag doll. Another mercenary charges forward with an axe. He gets swatted away too, doing 0 damage. Realizing the creature only charges in a straight line, the quick-thinking captain commands his squad to scatter and launch a synchronized flanking attack. The strategy works beautifully. A spearman vaults right over the colossal slime, landing a heavy blow on its flank. The beast screeches, and the fighter channels his inner energy to boost his strike. As the monster wobbles, the captain charges in with his sword glowing with aura. He commands his men to keep up the pressure, calling out the beast's hidden weak point, a glowing red core. Unleashing a massive slash, he shatters the crystal core. The legendary slime melts into puddle-sized nothingness. Victory is theirs, and the mercenaries celebrate their triumph with loud cheers. Kettle, however, is completely unimpressed. But their celebration is cut short as a pack of giant wolves surrounds them. One smug mercenary laughs, claiming the legends of this place are overhyped. The captain immediately shuts him down, snapping that they aren't even halfway through. Meanwhile, the sellswords start whispering, highly suspicious of Kettle. They think he is just useless dead weight. They want to test him. One mercenary approaches Melina, demanding a private talk. He points out that they are risking their necks for this shipment, and she nods in deep gratitude. They were the only squad brave enough to sign up. But the mercenary points out the elephant in the room: Kettle has done absolutely nothing. He demands permission to test the barbarian's strength. They need to see if this freerider actually deserves special treatment. Melina is stunned. The mercenary captain sighs, admitting his men are completely out of control and he cannot stop them. They refuse to stand down. Kettle just smirks, totally unbothered. If they want to throw hands, fine, but they will have to wait. Gripping his axe, he stares right past the confused mercenary, because something far worse has just arrived. A freezing, ominous presence descends upon the group, and a booming voice mocks them as weak, delicious snacks that just delivered themselves. A colossal white serpent erupts from the snow, roaring at the intruders. It taunts the group, telling them that their desperate struggle will only make them taste sweeter. Melina screams in horror. The mercenaries buckle under the beast's oppressive aura, but a sharp voice suddenly shatters the silence. Enough. Kettle looks incredibly annoyed, telling the snake these people are his guests. Back off. He demands to know why the beast is trespassing. The massive serpent hisses, asking if the barbarian forgot the ancient laws. He is way outside his territory. Kettle snaps that it is none of its business. That only enrages the beast. Mystical power surges from the monster as it boasts of its legendary status, roaring that nobody commands the immortal snake. Well, Kettle is officially done listening. Time to teach this overgrown worm some manners. He throws a monstrous punch that unleashes a titanic shockwave. It hits the serpent with crackling blue energy, throwing the surrounding guards backward. Melina is swept off her feet as her men scream in pure panic. When the smoke clears, the mighty serpent's head is a mangled, bloody mess. Kettle coldly remarks that some beasts only learn through pain. Melina can only stare, completely shell-shocked by the absolute display of raw power. "Lord Kettle," she gasps. With his eyes glowing a menacing purple, he tells her he will be back in a second, just needs to take out the rest of the trash. He stomps, fracturing the earth with dark energy, and rockets forward. Stick with me, because things are about to get absolutely wild in the plains. A few minutes later, Melina and the butler are stunned to see the mercenaries begging Carol to forgive them. Back inside the battered carriage, Hanu stays calm and says he understands why they would not trust a stranger. The trip goes on, and somehow the butler ends up outside the carriage. Carol turns to Melina, suddenly serious, and says there is something he wants to know. He asks why a noble woman like her would risk her own life on a mission this dangerous. After a short pause, she admits she is the daughter of a concubine, the second wife of Lord Akasha. Her mother, she explains, was used for politics and then cast aside, left with no real power. Clenching her fist, she says they are treated like servants, family only in name. She says she chose this trade mission herself, which catches Kato off guard. Her reason is simple. Someone has to lead by example. A faint smile touches Kato's face. He calls her smart, ambitious, and greedy. Melina is left speechless by that. But before she can answer, the carriage jolts again. Someone calls out that they have arrived, and when her men step out, they stare in awe. The blizzard is gone, giving way to a green valley. After thanking Kato, Melina says the trip back should be easier once the weapons are sold. Still, she cannot stop thinking about what he said. She turns and asks what he meant by calling her ambitious. He says exactly that. He knows her once powerful family is close to financial collapse, and if she succeeds where the main house failed, she will earn everyone's loyalty. Then he asks if her real goal is to take control of the family. She admits he is right. Kato smirks and says the story of a cast-off heir rising to power is a classic. Melina is stunned by how sharp he is. Then thinking about his strength, she gets an idea and asks whether he has ever considered leaving the snowfields. Would he like to join her? He refuses, for now, saying there are still things he must finish. Melina accepts that calmly. Then she takes the emblem from around her neck and offers it to him as a sign of their meeting. If he ever comes to the outside world, she says he should show it to the Akasha family. Kato takes the gift with a wide grin. Then they part, hoping to meet again, as he watches her carriage head into the green valley and away from the snow. 5 years pass, and in the endless snow, a long-awaited notice appears. All conditions have finally been met. A string of system messages follows, confirming the quest is complete and the rewards have been given. Then the line he has been waiting for appears at last. You may now leave the snowfields. Kato stands at the border of the wasteland, ready to enter the fantasy world he always dreamed of. With a confident grin, Kato looks ahead, ready for a fresh start. It is time for his first real step into that world. In a green forest, Kato takes a deep breath, finally enjoying this new world for real. He takes in the smell of grass, wild beasts, and fresh river water. Nothing like the frozen wasteland he escaped. He opens his eyes with a huge smile. Nice, very nice. Then his mood changes. He turns sharply and locks onto a distant frozen peak. You curse snow. Let us never meet again. He roars finally. Free. This is the fantasy world he has wanted for so long. A place he once thought he would never reach. The road here was brutal, but he made it. Now he is going to enjoy every second of it. Magic, swords, dragons, elves, everything he hoped for is here. That dream of starting over is what kept him alive. Back in the snowfield, surviving alone was never enough. As he walks on, something shining in the distance catches his attention. A glow up ahead. Maybe a village. Finally, people. He is thrilled. At last, a real village. He remembers trying to talk to the barbarians back home only to get blank stares. He has missed real conversation, so he starts planning what to say, maybe a simple hello, or maybe something more dramatic. In the end, he decides to act normal and polite, then runs toward the lights. Meanwhile, in a quiet clearing, an old elf speaks to his people. He tells them this will be their new home. The village bursts into cheers. After everything, they finally have a safe haven. However, a skeptical young elf steps forward and asks if this place is really safe. The elder reassures him without a shred of doubt, but the kid still worries. Humans may not be able to come here, but the snowy plains are close and monsters live there. The elder brushes it off. Nothing has crossed those plains in thousands of years, and they set up a barrier just in case. He says the barrier is ancient elven magic. It hides the village and keeps others away. And even if someone got through, he says they still have their queen. He is sure nothing can threaten them. He is very wrong. At that exact second, Hanu steps forward and feels his hand pass through something strange, like tearing cloth. He stops, puzzled, wondering what that was, then shrugs and keeps going. But a sudden sound makes him stop. Looking through the grass, he spots a small child with pointed ears. An elf. He can hardly believe it. A real elf. And this soon, too. What luck. The little girl, though, is lost and close to tears, scared she wandered too far. Then she hears a voice behind her. Her eyes go wide as Hanu leans over and gives her a friendly hello. The poor girl freezes in fear and faints on the spot. He just stands there holding the passed-out child. A bead of sweat runs down his face. He did not even get to explain, and she already passed out. After a moment, he figures he should take her back to the village. In his head, he imagines returning the lost child and getting welcomed like a hero. So, he carries her into the elven village with total confidence. Instead, the elves panic. They scream that a human has their child. Spears are shoved at his face and they demand to know who he is and how he broke their barrier. So much for that plan. The girl's mother cries out in horror, terrified. The elder is stunned. No human should be able to reach this place, and the barrier was supposed to be perfect. When he notices the barrier is damaged, panic sets in. He calls for the queen, but she is out on patrol. Hanu tries to say he is not an enemy, but no one listens. One elf yells for him to return the child or they will hunt him down. The elder's thoughts race. That barrier was ancient magic. No normal trick could break it, so he decides this had to be planned, that humans must have been tracking them for years. He is baffled. Does he really look like a kidnapper? Either way, he knows he has to fix this fast. Then the little girl in his arms starts to wake up. He carefully sets her down and tells her to go back to her family. She looks up at his gentle face, but all her frightened mind sees is a huge dark monster. So, she lets out a shriek and runs to her parents. That hits Hanu hard. Is his face really that scary? He raises his hands and tells the elves he returned the child, so he is clearly not their enemy. The elder does not care. Now that the hostage is free, he orders everyone to attack. At once, the elven archers draw their bows and aim at the very confused him. They fire and a volley of magic arrows rushes straight at him. He just stands there, stunned. They still will not listen. So much for elves being gentle. Out here, it is survival first. The arrows pour down, but Hanu does not budge. They bounce off him like toys. The elves panic and keep shouting to fire. Certain his defense has to break eventually. He has had enough. He lifts one hand, ready to end this. Then, in a single instant, he releases a huge shock wave. It blows apart the elves' position and sends the archers flying. Someone cries out for a barrier, but it is far too late. Trees are uprooted as the elves are thrown through the air, screaming. When it all settles, an old elf can only stare and wonder what just happened. At the end of the trench stands Hanu, calmly saying he is not their enemy. Then he awkwardly admits he may have used a bit too much power. Suddenly, a flaming phoenix arrow shoots straight at his head and explodes on impact. The old elf and the others are left staring in confusion. Then an elegant elven woman lands nearby. It is the queen and she demands to know what is happening. The elder quickly tells her a human attacked them. Her expression turns cold. If a human got in, then this place is not safe anymore. But Hanu walks out of the smoke without a scratch and asks them again to please listen. Both the elder and queen are stunned. He took a direct hit from her and still is not. Talk about a bad first impression. Up there, the queen glares down at him, completely disgusted by humans. Proudly declaring herself the leader of the Leaf clan, she pulls back another deadly arrow, pointing that flaming shot right at him. She promises he will pay for his greed. Hanu is just standing there, totally lost. They speak the same tongue, so why is she ignoring him? Do elves and humans really hate each other this much? Sighing, he realizes talking is pointless. Sometimes, folks only learn after a solid punch. The queen fires, her arrow crackling with blue energy. That arrow transforms into a massive, roaring spirit beast. Hanu simply clenches his fist, packing it with ridiculous power. One punch sends a shockwave shattering the beast, leaving the queen in absolute shock. Talk about overkill. His raw punch completely overpowers her ultimate move. The resulting blast sends the queen crashing down, buried under a pile of debris. Hanu just scratches his head, feeling kinda bad. Did he forget to hold back? Probably. The queen looks up, pale and trembling in pure terror. She suddenly realizes this guy is a transcendent. Why on earth is a literal god here? Panicking, she screams at her people to run. The other elves hesitate, but she shrieks again, ordering them to save themselves. As they retreat, she bravely turns back to face this monster. She yells that he will never get what he wants. Hanu is beyond baffled. He literally just wanted to chat, and now everything is ruined. Since she still won't listen, she prepares another spell. Closing her eyes, she channels a massive spell. When she opens them, a giant flaming bull erupts from a glowing magic circle. Seeing this, Hanu gets incredibly excited. Finally, some real fantasy action, a real summon. Unlike those hideous monsters from the frozen wasteland, this beast has magnificent blazing horns. Now this is a proper spirit. This is the fantasy adventure he was looking for. She orders it to crush the enemy, but the high-ranking fire spirit just grumbles about annoying contracts. The queen snaps back, demanding silence. She knows these ancient spirits have massive egos. Summoning him was exhausting, and she only managed it thanks to a friendly tribe. She firmly commands the spirit to honor their deal. Snorting, the fiery beast stomps its hoof, ready to fight. It asks if it just needs to incinerate this weak human. But then, it looks closely at Hanu and freezes. He is standing there with a pitch-black aura and a terrifyingly savage grin. Is that terrifying creature even human? Meanwhile, the giant fireball towers over the battlefield, roaring with power. Kettle can barely contain his excitement. This is a dream come true for him. Before he can enjoy the moment, a booming voice speaks, accusing him of trespassing. The fireball, Pigo, glares down, growling that a mere human has no right to demand anything from nature. Threatens to turn him into ash, but Kettle is completely unfazed. If anything, he just looks bewildered. Losing patience, the bull charges up its flames, its eyes blazing with intent to kill. It charges forward like a meteor meant to vaporize him. Kettle stands his ground, bracing for impact. The collision is absolutely brutal, tearing up the earth and blowing the elf queen backward. Getting back up, she witnesses the impossible. Kettle stopped the massive bull with a single hand, casually grabbing its horn. The colossal beast is frozen in place, its charge completely neutralized. Kettle lets out a savage grin. Dealing with beasts is actually much simpler for him. Purple energy flares in his eyes as he winds up his fist. Deciding a good beating is the easiest solution. The queen watches in absolute horror as Kettle unleashes a single punch. A blinding explosion erupts, and a violent shockwave tears a massive trench clean through the forest. A colossal mushroom cloud rises as the surrounding landscape is completely leveled. The queen screams as the scorching wind sweeps over her. When the dust clears, she drops to her knees, devastated. She whispers that this must be a nightmare. Staring at the gargantuan crater created by a single punch, she looks up at Kettle, who is standing there completely unfazed. Terrified, she bows down. She begs him to spare her tribe. Kettle simply sighs, telling her he was never her enemy to begin with. The queen looks up, completely stunned. This whole disaster was one giant misunderstanding. Deeply ashamed, she bows and apologizes for rushing to judgment. They assumed he was a threat, even though he literally just returned a lost elven child to safety. Now, she feels terrible. Kettle gets why they are wary of humans. Though he is still annoyed she never let him speak. Still cautious, she asks if he is allied with the hunters. Kettle tells her no. He explains it is his first time even seeing an elf, as he comes from the White Wasteland. Her eyes go wide with shock. The White Wasteland? Kettle nods, confirming his legendary title. He is the famous Ashen Barbarian. She can barely believe it, since humans are not supposed to survive out there. She nervously asks if more of his kind will follow him here. Kettle folds his arms, doubting it. That wasteland has strict laws that even giant serpents cannot break. He only bypassed those rules thanks to a unique, hidden quest. It was a total exception. Relieved to hear that, the queen sighs. Kettle then awkwardly asks if that flaming bull spirit is doing okay, sweating a bit as he remembers punching the poor beast in half. She explains it was a spirit, so punching it just sent it back home. Eager to make amends, she offers to help him. Kettle gets interested, immediately asking about spirit contracts. He wonders if non-elves can form contracts too. Her face falls as she explains it is virtually impossible. Only humans with deep ties to nature can do it. meaning he is likely out. Then she pauses, hitting on an idea. If he truly wants a contract, he must travel to Alpha Sigrad. Kettle repeats the name, curious about this holy land where their god resides. If it is possible anywhere, it is there. Kettle is thrilled, but raises an obvious point. Is a human even allowed inside an elven sanctuary? Normally no, but she has a solution. With her personal recommendation, he can get in. Elosigrad is a legendary dreamland. Still, she admits that guiding a human to their most sacred sanctuary is an incredibly massive gamble. No elf would ever dream of doing this, but she chooses to trust him. Handing him a glowing red crystal, she warns him that reaching the sanctuary is only the first step. Once there, the elven god will test him, though she knows he will succeed. As she wishes him luck, she introduces herself as Queen Marcelia, Hazy, and Kushia. Kettle genuinely thanks her, the actual queen. Kettle just flashes a confident grin, introducing himself simply as Kettle the Barbarian. He then stomps the earth, launching into the sky like a literal rocket with glowing eyes. He blasts over the canopy as a blinding blur, crossing the forest in seconds. From below, he looks like a raging comet, unleashing a violent shockwave. Meanwhile, at the Varkan border, a violent tremor suddenly rattles a fortress. The guards instantly panic. They have no clue what is happening, only that something massive is hurtling toward them, leaving a thick trail of smoke. The projectile impacts with a massive crash, revealing a figure landing in a perfect superhero pose. The guards completely freeze. They realize exactly who just crashed their party. Kettle casually waves. He casually greets them, leaving the soldiers completely speechless. They wonder if he literally just fell from the sky. Squinting, one guard notices the gray hair and massive scar on his chest. It instantly clicks. Is this the legendary Ashen Barbarian? As Kettle takes a single step, the guards immediately draw their blades. He quickly raises his hands, telling them to chill out. The commander is not buying the friendly act and demands his business. Kettle simply points past them toward the massive castle walls, politely asking to enter. The guards just stare in confusion. Cut to an interrogation room. The officer asks if he's just passing through. Kettle replies that he actually wants to vacation here for a bit, giving his name. Naturally, they demand ID. Since he is a wasteland barbarian, he obviously has no paperwork. But then, he remembers the queen's crest. He tosses it onto the table, asking if this works. The guard's jaw literally drops. So, our main character flashes a token from House Akasha, yes, that legendary merchant family. The guard recognizes it instantly, but there is still some major doubt. After all, verifying foreign crests is rough. Sure, it looks authentic, but checking kingdoms takes forever. So, the guard agrees to let him through with a slight catch. Kettle has to prove he is harmless by joining 3 complete strangers to raid a dungeon. He wants Kettle to form a party and clear the place. Easy enough, right? Kettle just smiles and accepts. But there is a twist. He must report everything that happens inside once they finish. Our boy catches on instantly. It is a clever trick to make the rookies keep tabs on each other. The guard is totally thrown off by his quick wit. Are you actually a barbarian? When Kettle proudly says yes, the guard just stands there, completely speechless. He thought barbarians were just brainless muscle. Meanwhile, over in the waiting room, we meet the next guy, Alessandro Tyrannus. He is a self-proclaimed paladin, and he is already complaining about having to raid a dungeon with some sneaky, pickpocketing rat. Casson, the thief, overhears this and immediately fires back. He asks if the old man is just salty because another thief robbed him blind. Alessandro instantly loses it, shouting insults, while Casson just laughs and mocks his rusty, beaten-up armor. Was he ever even a real paladin? Calling him a total loser makes the paladin absolutely boil with rage. But when Casson mocks his name, that is the final straw. Alessandro draws his sword, ready for blood. Casson just smirks, pulling out a poison-tipped dagger and mocking his defense. Their weapons clash, but wait. A nun steps right between them, pleading for them to stop. Talk about a holy intervention. Meet Hayes, the cleric. She is already questioning how she is supposed to survive a dungeon with these 2 clowns, and she is absolutely dreading whatever final freak is about to walk through the door. Right on cue, the heavy door swings open. The guard announces their last party member, and in walks this colossal mountain of a man with glowing purple eyes. Talk about making a grand entrance. The room goes dead silent as they stare at his massive frame. Kettle breaks the ice with a massive grin, asking if they are his new crew. They are absolutely terrified. Hayes wonders if he is even human, while Casson is practically suffocating from the pressure. Unbothered by the tense silence, Kettle cheerfully introduces himself as a proud barbarian. He looks over at Casson, who is sweating bullets while stammering that he is a thief. Then there is the armored guy, proudly introducing himself as the paladin Alessandro Tyrannus. Kettle asks if he uses holy magic, making the poor guy sweat as he admits that normally he would, but he is a special kind of paladin who cannot. Next, Hayes nervously steps up. She introduces herself as a cleric of Kalasha. Kettle gets serious, pointing out how suspicious that is. Flustered, she confesses her god is the god of lies, so nobody ever trusts her. Now, you and I can already see where this is going. A powerless paladin and a lying cleric. What a legendary squad. Luckily, the guard returns, asking if they are ready to roll. They trade looks, and honestly, nobody looks happy. Hayes and Casson look like they are questioning every single life choice that led them to this moment. Soon, they are on their way. Their cloaked guide stops, pointing out the dungeon entrance. Kettle looks ahead, a bit surprised. They reach a quiet clearing in the woods, staring right at the dark cavern. Kettle asks Casson for the game plan, instantly stressing the poor thief out. Casson awkwardly calls him sir, but Kettle just laughs, telling his new teammate to chill out. Trying to keep his cool, Casson lays out a basic setup. Melee up front, the thief sweeps for traps, and the cleric supports. Kettle happily agrees, though Casson is already regretting everything. With their fragile plan set, Kettle takes the lead. Inside the dark, freezing cave, Hayes admits the spooky darkness is getting to her, but Casson is worried about something else entirely. The complete lack of traps feels way too suspicious. Suddenly, he senses danger and stops Kettle, warning him of monsters ahead. Looking down, our barbarian spots a pile of bones. Casson realizes the truth instantly. This is not a test, it is a death trap. But Kettle? He is just looking at the pile, completely curious. Skeletons, huh? Casson explains these guys are brutal. Even if you chop them up, they keep coming back because of the dungeon's magic. With the stakes raised, Casson starts barking out tactical orders. He tells Hayes to prep her support spells, tells the paladin to hold the line, and warns Kettle to get ready. Kettle casually nods, treating Casson like some brilliant military mastermind. But as Kettle takes one step, the skeleton rattles to life. Kettle watches with genuine curiosity as the bony warrior stands up, while the rest of the team starts to panic. The monster charges with its giant sword raised, but Kettle casually swats the blade away and throws a single punch. Boof! The entire skeleton is instantly obliterated into pieces. It turns into a glittering pile of bone dust. The team is utterly speechless. Kettle just smirks, noting that aiming for the head really works. Casson is completely dead inside. That is not what he meant at all. What Kettle did should be physically impossible. Dungeon-buffed skeletons are supposed to be incredibly tough, requiring endless hacking to put down. Casson knew Kettle was strong, but this is ridiculous. Now the entire party is silently wondering if this guy is even human. Kettle just cracks his knuckles, ready for more. The others scramble to keep up. He tells them there is no need to rush, but his terrified teammates quickly reply, "Yes, sir." They all share one single goal right now. They absolutely do not want to die. Suddenly, Kettle stops with a puzzled look. His foot hits something. The party freezes as another skull appears, and a second skeleton rises up. As the creature stands, the party braces for terror. But instead of fighting together, Kettle turns around and asks for a favor. He wants to handle this entire round completely solo. He wants to test a few things out. Naturally, they agree immediately. With his purple eyes glowing, Kettle walks toward the skeleton while his terrified team backs away. They watch in absolute awe, wondering what he is cooking. Kettle approaches the skeleton, staring it down like a science experiment. The monster swings, but Kettle catches the blade with 2 fingers. He snaps the metal like a twig, silently mocking its power. Undeterred, the creature lunges again. Instead of dodging, Kettle just grabs its wrist with a massive grin on his face. He asks, "How about this?" A sickening crunch echoes through the cave as he pulverizes the skeleton's hand and drops it, watching the creature's reaction with absolute fascination. The monster stares at its ruined hand, momentarily confused. Then it roars, throwing its sword into its good hand to keep fighting. Honestly, not bad for a pile of old bones. Kettle is genuinely impressed by its adaptability. But as the skeleton charges, he catches the other wrist and rips the second hand clean off, leaving it stumbling backward. Yet, it still keeps coming, trying to stab him with its own arm bones. Kettle is thrilled. This thing is actually smart enough to use its own body as a weapon. The party looks green watching this brutal science class. They can only shake in terror while Kettle dismantles the monster like a true barbarian, finishing it with one final, devastating blow. The skull rolls away, still snapping its teeth, which Kettle finds hilarious. The fact that it can move with just a head is wild. One solid stomp ends it for good. Just like that, Kettle flashes a warm smile and apologizes for the delay. The trembling thief quickly squeaks that it is no problem, and Kettle cheerfully says, "It is time to move." The traumatized party quickly follows. Soon, they stand before a massive stone staircase leading to the second floor. "You and I know things are only going to get crazier from here," Exhausted from the brutal climb, Kason desperately begs for a quick breather. Thank goodness, KD actually agrees. The poor guy could literally weep as they collapse to rest, while KD just sits there, quietly, watching them like a hawk. Suddenly, he speaks up, admitting he has no clue about how this world works. A flustered Hayes reassures him that asking questions is totally fine and asks what is on his mind. Surprisingly, KD drops a highly logical question. Why on earth is a lethal dungeon left wide open right next to a peaceful town? Hayes explains that monsters typically stay inside, and if any escape, they get wiped out instantly. Kason chimes in, explaining that dungeons are just a natural part of their world. From caves to massive towers, they mysteriously love popping up right near crowded cities. Hayes adds that whenever one spawns, the local lord pays mercenaries like them to sweep it. KD clarifies if that means they only form outside of towns, never inside. Alejandro nods in agreement, making KD's eyes instantly light up. He immediately asks the real question, is there a big reward for clearing this place? Hayes replies that a boss of this tier should drop something incredibly precious. A creepy, satisfied grin spreads across KD's face as he mutters that this is exactly like a video game. Hayes hears the weird comment, brushes it off, and moves on. But then, KD drops a question that completely paralyzes the room. Who actually created these dungeons? Hayes repeats that they are just natural phenomena, but KD is not buying it. He points out how fishy it is that they spawn right next to civilization, aiding people inside with sweet loot. It feels way too calculated to be natural. This conspiracy theory hits Hayes like a truck. Stunned, she realizes she never once questioned it. Kason is sweating too. He always assumed barbarians were just brainless muscleheads, but KD is playing chess here. Is this guy even human? Honestly, Kason is starting to wonder what kind of monster they actually recruited. But those dark thoughts vanish when KD cheerfully asks if everyone is done resting. Snapped back to reality, the terrified party quickly scrambles up. They march deeper into the darkness, until KD suddenly halts with a look of genuine shock. He has spotted a massive, ancient treasure chest. Kason explains that it is their lucky reward, assuming someone can actually crack it. However, a chest this massive requires a pro rogue. KD turns to Kason and casually tells him to open it. Kason completely freezes. KD's logic is flawless. It is a chest, Kason is a rogue, and therefore, this is his one job. But Kason starts sweating bullets, screaming internally. If he actually had the high-level skills to pick a lock like this, he wouldn't be grinding in some low-tier garbage dungeon. Kason is literally falling apart. He cannot bring himself to tell the truth. Especially not with that big, innocent, hopeful face staring at him. Instantly, his mind plays a horror movie. KD getting angry, calling him trash, and popping his head like a grape. Terrified, Kason forces out a pathetic, trembling laugh and agrees to try. As he nervously kneels before the lock, KD leans right over his shoulder to watch with massive curiosity. Kason is absolutely certain he is dead if he messes this up. He desperately racks his brain, trying to copy the lockpicking moves he once saw elite adventurers do while he was just their luggage boy. With violently shaking hands, he begins. KD looms over him like a giant shadow. Kason realizes his entire life hinges on this single, lucky shot. He is about to have a full panic attack when suddenly the lock pops open. KD is just confused by why the rogue is vibrating so hard. Kason completely loses his mind and bursts into tears of pure relief, sobbing that he actually did it. Hayes is utterly shocked, exclaiming that only master thieves can crack that and calls him a genius. Even KD is genuinely impressed and pats Kason on the back. Kason can't even process his own success. He always thought he was giving life his all, but maybe he was just slacking until now. The man is having an existential crisis. Meanwhile, KD is already over it, asking what the loot is actually worth. Hayes estimates it could fund a wealthy lifestyle for an entire month. Hearing this, K smiles and proudly makes Kason the official treasurer. Eager to please, Kason dives right into the chest, pulling out a sparkling, jewel-encrusted goblet worth more than his entire life. Suddenly, K shouts his name out of nowhere. Kason lets out a high-pitched shriek of absolute terror. KD is completely bewildered by the overreaction and asks if he got hurt or needs medical help. Kason frantically shakes his head, while the rest of the party just stares in confusion. Shrugging off the awkwardness, they press deeper into the damp cave. Suddenly, Kason signals a halt. "Skeletons up ahead!" KD quickly counts 4 bony enemies, and calmly announces he will take 3. The party completely freezes. Did this madman just say that? He tells them to handle the last one, looking incredibly hyped. Holding the gold, Kason realizes this is real combat now. Blesner simply nods, accepting the challenge. But as soon as KD takes a single step, the scattered bones on the floor rattle loudly and begin to assemble themselves into terrifying monsters. Cassin watches in utter horror as all four stand tall, their sockets glowing with a creepy blue light while shrieking silently. Kettle yells the start of the battle. Instantly, Cassin charges in, daggers drawn, aiming to strike. He catches one off guard, but before his blade can land, Kettle interrupts. The barbarian snatches 3 skeletons in a massive, crushing bear hug and tells the others not to interfere because those 3 are his toys. Meanwhile, the lone 4th skeleton swings its sword down, but Alessandro blocks it with his shield, making a loud metallic clang. Cassin immediately leaps into action, vaulting right over the monster with daggers ready, while Hayes casts her Shadow of Confusion spell with glowing eyes. Alejandro seizes the perfect opening, bringing down his glowing sword in a vicious slash. The skeleton crumbles, but its core remains intact, causing it to reconstruct itself and strike back. Watching his squad struggle, KD just chuckles. He remarks that seeing real teamwork in action is actually pretty amusing and hard to find. He then casually squeezes the 3 skeletons in his arms, crushing them to dust with raw, bare-handed strength. As their bones dissolve, he laughs that his path is clear so he can watch them fight. Preparing for round 2, the trio suddenly realizes the truth. This insane barbarian is actually grading their performance. Even the remaining skeleton looks confused by their sudden burst of desperation. Hayes hardens her heart. Fail here, and they are dead. Andre charges forward like a man possessed, completely overwhelming the monster as they launch a coordinated team attack. Finally, the skull rolls away, and with the battle won, the exhausted party collapses to the floor, gasping for air. Kettle watches his half-dead teammates and starts comparing them to the elite warriors he once met. Those guys were definitely monsters, because this squad barely survived against a single skeleton. They continue descending, encountering more monsters that Kettle casually obliterates like bugs. Eventually, the party steps onto the final floor. Resting at the very end of the chamber is a terrifying figure in dark armor, resting on a stone throne. It is a skeleton knight, and Hayes begins trembling violently in pure dread. Kettle, totally unfazed, asks if this one is special, compared to the others. The response is chilling. Yes, this is a legendary knight, fully armed, and they stand absolutely zero chance of survival. Terrified out of her mind, Hayes knows defeat is inevitable. Kettle calmly inquires about the penalty for a strategic retreat. Hayes explains that while they usually need official approval, fleeing an unwinnable boss fight is perfectly valid. Hearing this, Kettle smirks slightly and says that works for him. Meanwhile, the Dark Knight sits motionless, radiating an oppressive, suffocating aura of pure death. In the absolute deepest depths, the ultimate boss is ready, a skeleton knight cloaked in a creepy purple mist. It slowly stands up to face Kettle, who merely chuckles, genuinely amused that some old bones can hold themselves together. The boss wastes no time, raising its giant sword, to split him in half. Instantly, it jumps high into the air, releasing an enormous wave of dark energy. Hayes conjures a defensive shield, but it instantly shatters, forcing Alejandro to jump forward with his heavy shield, to block the shockwave. Yet, the entire team is blown away, completely overpowered. For a split second, even Kettle looks slightly intrigued. Alejandro is utterly stunned by the absurd raw strength behind that single strike. Treating them like absolute garbage, the knight charges forward to end their lives. But this time, Kettle steps up. He counters the charge with a single, devastating punch that shakes the entire room. The mighty knight is instantly obliterated, reduced to dust with one hit. The party stands completely frozen, their brains failing to comprehend what just happened. KD casually dusts off his knuckles, asking if that was really it. One punch. With the threat ended, our party spots the real reward, a massive treasure chest. KD tells Caston to open it, but the poor guy panics immediately. That high-level lock is way beyond his skill. When Caston says they have to walk away, KD just punches the chest open. Caston and the crew are left completely speechless yet again. KD just grins, says this is way easier, and tells Caston to grab the loot. Caston is too shocked to even ask why KD bothered to ask for permission if he could just break it. With the dungeon cleared, the team heads back out, only for the cave entrance behind them to collapse. Caston explains that a perfect run makes the dungeon disappear completely, meaning there was never a secret room. KD just grins. He casually admits that would have been pretty fun, too. Back at the city gate, the guard is shocked to see them return so fast. Fearing the absolute worst, he asks how it went. KD flashes a huge thumbs up, saying it was satisfying. The guard begins the normal security check, pulling each party member aside alone. He asks Hayes if they should actually let this barbarian stay, and after hesitating, she says yes. Screening out dangerous people is his real job, after all. But surprisingly, both Caston and Alejandro back KD up. They swear that despite his ridiculous strength, he never hurt them once. The guard quickly realizes KD is no ordinary barbarian. When KD is questioned, he just heaps praise on his teammates, calling them totally dependable. The guard is stunned, because forcing random strangers into a party literally never ends this well. Convinced, he lets KD into the city, while warning him not to start any trouble. Then he hands over the dungeon reward, a heavy sack of gold. Normally, corrupt guards would pocket the loot, but this time he actually hands it over. KD happily grabs it and announces they are splitting it evenly 4 ways. The others try to decline, knowing they did absolutely nothing to help, but KD insists on a fair share. With that settled, he cheerfully suggests they all celebrate with a round of drinks. The other 3 force painfully fake smiles and tag along. But the moment he steps away, they are practically crying, begging to be freed from this nightmare. Watching them leave, the guard reflects on what he witnessed. A barbarian who shattered a skeleton knight in 1 hit. He is incredibly strong, at least knight level, maybe beyond. This is no ordinary wild man. He is a total legend, something completely outside the norm. Recognizing this is way above his pay grade, the guard decides he must report it to his lord immediately. Later that night, inside a grand estate, a powerful man writes by candlelight. A sudden knock breaks the silence, and a voice from the throne tells the visitor to come in. The city guard steps inside, approaching the throne, addressing the man as his lord. Luke Barkin, absolute ruler of this domain, looks up from his work and asks what this is about. The guard captain stands straight and gets to the point. A barbarian has entered our lands. Luke Barkin snaps, "Did you actually let him stay?" Sweating buckets, the captain explains he figured it wouldn't cause a major issue. But Luke Barkin isn't satisfied, demanding to know what the real problem is. The captain finally confesses this monster is incredibly strong, strong enough to threaten a whole kingdom. Now Barkin is hooked. He leans forward and asks exactly how strong. The answer is absolutely wild. This barbarian killed a skeleton knight in 1 blow. That shocks Barkin, since those monsters normally require a full team of pros to defeat. Yet this man ended it in a split second. Hearing that it's a barbarian, Barkin struggles to buy it, so he presses the captain. Was this brute really some high-tier warrior? The captain nods, saying he might be even stronger, still sweating bullets. This is a ruler's absolute nightmare, an unknown powerhouse roaming his territory, so Barkin decides to confront it head-on, and orders them to bring him in. The captain nearly panics, asking if he is absolutely sure. Still, Barkin makes sense. Leaving an unchecked monster roaming around is just asking for trouble, so he warns it is incredibly risky, but Barkin just smiles, gesturing behind his throne. There is no need to worry, he has insurance. He turns to his Shadow Knight, asking what he thinks. Clenching his fist with pride, the knight scoffs. To him, Hanu is just a savage barbarian who got lucky. Having trained under elite swordmasters, he views the guy as nothing but an insect. That arrogant answer is plenty for Barkin, who orders the guard to bring him over. Meanwhile, the so-called barbarian is currently busy tearing through an absolute all-you-can-eat feast. His traumatized party can only watch in silent horror. Hanu, completely oblivious, slams down his empty mug and cheerfully says the food is fantastic and his treat, so eat up. They answer with painfully awkward laughter. Then he puts Alessandra right on the spot, asking if he is actually a holy knight, and if so, where was that holy magic in the dungeon? Alessandra sweats, explaining he is still in training, so his holy strength hasn't awakened yet. Hanu bluntly replies, that's a real pity, sensitivity is definitely not his thing. He then turns to Hayes, asking if she worships Kalasha, and if there is a temple nearby. Hayes awkwardly points out that her goddess literally rules over lies and deception, so temples are incredibly rare. She quickly changes the subject, asking the burning question, just how strong is he? The others perk up instantly, while Hanu just stares back with a chicken bone hanging from his mouth. He says he has no clue since he is new, then asks how tough a skeleton knight actually is. Hayes explains that a second-rate warrior could barely survive one, while a first-rate fighter might win like he did. He casually asks if his victory only makes him second-rate. Suddenly, a shaky voice interrupts them. It is the shop owner, nervously announcing they are closing. He clearly wants this monster gone immediately. Hanu cheerfully agrees, asking if they should meet up, and later, right on cue, the other 3 blurt out terrible excuses and run for their lives. Hanu just waves them off with a friendly goodbye, while the trio is desperately praying they never cross paths with him again. Once he is finally alone, he books a room and flops onto the bed. This is pure luxury to him, and he is just glad that dungeon gold covered it. After surviving in the freezing snow, even a stiff bed feels like heaven. He starts planning his next moves. He is out of the wild now and ready to enjoy civilization. His goals are classic adventurer dreams: visiting the elf kingdom, seeing the grand magic tower, and exploring the capital, all the legendary spots. He falls asleep dreaming of adventure, only to be woken the next morning by loud pounding on his door. He drags himself up and opens it to find that very same trembling guard captain standing there. Hanu stands there completely shirtless, letting out a heavy grunt. What? The poor captain nearly leaps out of his skin, then nervously delivers the news. The territory lord wants to meet him, meaning the ruler of this domain demands a private chat. Hanu just grins and agrees instantly. He only asks to grab a shirt while the captain keeps sweating. This meeting is definitely going to be trouble. But as they walk through town, Hanu is just looking around in pure excitement. Since he only arrived at night, this is his first look at daylight. He flashes the terrified captain a massive grin and a thumbs up, totally loving this fantasy city vibe. The captain looks like he wants to vanish, deciding to just rush the trip and avoid looking at him any more than necessary. Finally, they reach the grand hall. The captain announces he has brought the barbarian, and the doors swing wide as Barkin calls them inside. Hanu steps forward like he is getting the absolute royal treatment. Barkin reaches out a hand, introducing himself as the lord of these lands, and Hanu actually shakes it, offering a polite bow before properly introducing himself. This completely breaks Barkin's brain. A barbarian showing actual manners makes zero sense. He expected a crude, lawless, savage, not a polite gentleman. Trying hard not to show his shock, Barkin notes that Hanu possesses some manners after all, then invites him to sit. Hanu looks around, impressed by the fancy decor, but quickly notices a fully armored knight standing there, standing guard. That instantly grabs Hanu's full attention. He is absolutely thrilled to see a real fantasy knight up close. The knight catches his stare, completely misinterpreting it as hostile bloodlust. He cannot believe he would show such blatant hostility right in front of the lord. Furious, the knight reaches for his sword. Before things turn ugly, Barkin quickly intervenes, saying he only wants to ask a few questions. Hanu calmly sips. He sips his tea and tells Barkin to ask away. Naturally, Barkin drops the biggest question first. Where is he from? Our barbarian just smiles, giving a mysterious answer. The coldest place, a world buried in pure white. That answer completely stuns Barkin and his knight. He is talking about the legendary white snowfield. Now, Barkin is absolutely convinced he is sitting right across from the living legend himself, but Hanu just shrugs. Believe it or not, that is up to him. So, Barkin changes tactics. He asks point blank how strong he really is, desperately trying to gauge if this giant is a threat. Hanu claims that is the wrong question since he does not even know how power is measured here. Barkin and his knight trade looks. Then, Barkin proposes a quick test, a friendly duel with a reward. Hearing reward, Hanu instantly lights up. Barkin quickly promises it is not a fight to the death. Hanu grins and agrees. That instant yes catches Barkin off guard, but our barbarian is just genuinely hyped to fight. A real knight with magical powers? Yes, please. Barkin clenches his fist, smugly thinking barbarians are so easy to manipulate. Just dangle a fight and they bite. Soon, they are standing in a massive arena. Down below, Hanu and the knight square off. The knight is dead serious, while Hanu looks like a kid in a candy store. Barkin signals the start, shouting for them to keep it non-lethal. Clang! The knight draws his blade, boasting that Hanu should feel honored to witness his elite swordsmanship. Hanu cheerfully agrees, which somehow insults the knight even more. He vows to utterly crush this insolent brute. Talk about an ego. A massive green aura erupts from the knight. He challenges Hanu, unleashes a brutal swing, and sends 3 massive crescent blades of pure energy flying straight at our hero. Hanu just stares, totally baffled. Wait, 3 of them? He wonders if it is an illusion. But no, those glowing energy blades are entirely real. Ah, so this is what civilized people call sword skills. The knight sneers, mocking Hanu and telling him all he can do is run. But right before the impact, Hanu casually flicks his finger. Boom! The massive energy slash completely shatters. The knight freezes. Before the guy can even process what happened, Hanu vanishes, closes the distance in a literal blink, and grabs him by the breastplate, crushing that solid steel armor like a cheap soda can. With one effortless, brutal toss, he sends the heavily armored knight soaring across the entire arena. Up in the VIP seats, Luke Barkin is left completely speechless. Talk about a reality check. The elite knight is down, cratered into the floor after just one single strike. Barkin cannot even comprehend this level of raw power. Hanu just smiles warmly, asking if they are done yet. Barkin gulps, quietly nodding yes while his mind starts racing. One-shotting a high-rank knight is absolutely insane. A barbarian with this kind of ridiculous strength could tip the global balance of power. He needs to alert one specific person, the legendary swordmaster. He wonders if the old man has arrived in town yet. Right then, a voice echoes out of thin air, asking who he is looking for. The window flies open, and a quirky old man in green robes pops in. Barkin sighs, noting his grand entrance is as weird as ever. The old man just chuckles, claiming everyone needs a little excitement. Meet Swordmaster Kane, and he is extremely curious about this mysterious barbarian. Barkin instantly stands and bows, showing just how terrifyingly influential this old guy really is. Later, we see the defeated knight recovering in bed. The poor guy is seriously reassessing his life choices. Suddenly, Barkin walks in to check on his recovery. The knight jerks upright, immediately stammering apologies for his pathetic defeat, but Kane cuts him off. Do not apologize to Barkin, apologize to me. Yep, plot twist, he is actually the knight's master. Kane notes something incredibly bizarre about the duel. The steel armor was crushed, but the knight inside did not have a single scratch. This barbarian is no mindless brute. He held back with god-tier precision just to spare the guy's life. That level of absolute control is beyond superhuman. Hearing this, Barkin and the knight look like they have seen a ghost. Barkin asks how Kettle compares to Kane, but the swordmaster just scoffs. He is a legendary swordmaster. Raw muscle is nothing to true martial arts. But Barkin points out one glaring detail. Kettle possessed massive strength, yet did not show a single drop of aura. That is why Barkin believes he is from the dreaded White Snowfield. That actually makes Kane pause. He has heard terrifying rumors about that place. Could Kettle be a heteromorph, a non-human monster in disguise? Kane quickly dismisses the thought. If Kettle were a true monster, the knight would have been turned into red mist instantly. Still, a major mystery remains. Why would someone from the edge of the map show up now? Kane shrugs it off, muttering about the Emperor and his bizarre secret requests. He tells Barkin to drop it. But then, his curiosity gets the better of him. Is this barbarian still around? Barkin nods, yes. Kane decides it is time to pay this wildcard a little visit. Meanwhile, Keel is chillaxing outside, chatting with a guard, completely oblivious to the elite conspiracies brewing around him. The guard asks what his next move is, now that he has the reward money. Keel figures he needs to get a proper identification card first, which would make traveling around the kingdom much easier. The guard lays out two options: find an elite noble sponsor, or sign up with the mercenary guild. If he earns enough merit doing missions, the guild will officially vouch for his identity. Of course, newbies usually just do chores, so the guard advises finding a sponsor instead. Does Keel care? Nope. The moment he hears mercenaries get to go on epic quests and hunt monsters, he is sold. Grinning like a maniac, he demands to know where to sign up. The guard sighs, pointing out a local guild hall. Lead the way. Keel beams, unleashing his trademark blinding smile. The guard instantly folds. But let us be real. You and I know mercenary life is no fairy tale. It is the absolute bottom of society. Even powerhouse fighters die in dark dungeons or get used for dirty political work. Yes, the bottom-tier life is chaotic, grimy, and loud. Right on cue, a massive tavern brawl is already underway at the guild. The other members are not even stopping it. They are literally placing bets. Over at the front desk, a pink-haired receptionist asks her colleague about the new recruits. Rosa, the blonde, lets out a soul-crushing sigh. They are all complete weirdos. This batch includes a fallen Templar, a highly suspicious thief, and a nun praying to some sketchy dark god. Rosa groans that they never get normal people, just absolute troublemakers. She desperately wishes a handsome prince would walk through that door and save her. Just then, the entrance swings open, revealing a massive silhouette towering over the entire room. Well, so much for the prince. It is our giant barbarian, grinning ear to ear. Instantly, the brawl freezes, and the entire hall goes dead silent. Everyone is staring in absolute terror. Completely ignoring the sudden panic, he slams his hands on the desk and announces his grand plan to become a mercenary. A trembling Rosa stammers, asking why on earth he would want that. He explains he just needs an official ID. She warns him it is a long, grueling path, and registration costs 5 silver coins. When asked for his age, Kettle admits he has no clue. Rosa just sighs, makes up a random number, and hands over his brand new mercenary badge. Kettle snatches it up, demanding a quest immediately. Rosa reluctantly points him to the absolute beginner board. He stares at the board, completely underwhelmed. F-rank jobs are basically household chores, collecting herbs, sweeping basements, and scrubbing sewers. Not exactly the glorious monster-hunting adventure he imagined. Rosa starts sweating, worried this proud barbarian is going to trash the place out of insult. But as she starts explaining the ranking system, Kettle suddenly taps the board. He picks herb gathering, the most boring job on the entire list. A stunned Rosa asks if he is sure. Kettle shrugs, saying if work needs to be done, he will do it. She gives him a quick drawing of the plant and points him toward the forest. He grins, grabs the paper, and promises to return shortly. Once he walks out, Rosa is left utterly baffled. Her pink-haired colleague has to literally shake her back to reality. Deep in the woods, Kettle spots some glowing green leaves and compares them to his drawing. Looks like a match. It is a little odd, but he gets right to work. He jokes that with his protective gear on, he is ready for battle. An hour later, he is back thump. A massive sack of herbs slams onto the desk, giving poor Rosa a mini heart attack. Smiling, he asks if this is enough. Rosa wonders if he literally stripped the entire field bare, but when she checks, she is totally stunned. Every single herb is flawless. Usually, mercenaries just rip them out like savages. But Kettle has an unexpectedly gentle touch. Rosa pays him 1 silver coin for his trouble. It is barely enough to buy the cheapest food in town, but Kettle is absolutely beaming. This is the first money he has ever earned doing honest work, which means the world to him. He tells her he is thrilled and asks for another quest immediately, leaving Rosa completely bewildered. She just cannot wrap her head around it. This towering, terrifying barbarian is actually hyped about picking flowers. She is officially convinced this giant is a total weirdo. But wait, the grind does not stop. After picking flowers, scrubbing a cellar, and wading through the sewers, he is still going. Next up is warehouse cleaning, and Rosa is about to lose her mind. This is his 4th chore quest in a row. Watching this massive warrior grin over sweeping, she honestly wonders if he just loves chores. Plastering on a stiff customer, service smile, she stamps his paper and sends him off. Soon, Kettle arrives at the warehouse, ready to work. The owner is waiting, probably expecting some scrawny kid looking for pocket change. Instead, a literal mountain of a man shows up, cheerfully announcing he is here for the trash. The poor woman nearly passes out in sheer terror. When he asks if she is the boss, she barely squeaks out a yes. All she can think is barbarian, but he is actually a dream worker. Massive crates are like feathers to him. Next, he takes on street sweeping. Controlling his colossal strength with a broom is tough, but he gets the hang of it. Little does he know, he is being watched. From a nearby window, Swordmaster Kane is staring through binoculars, utterly baffled. He literally cannot believe his eyes. Kettle has enough raw power to shake a kingdom. Any nation would beg to recruit him, yet he is using those legendary muscles to sweep dirt. Worse, he is taking it so seriously. Kane is speechless. Meanwhile, Kettle happily wipes his brow, enjoying the satisfying feeling of an honest day of labor. The next morning, he wakes up sore but incredibly refreshed. Spotting his coin pouch on the table, he remembers Rosa handing over his earnings, praising him for smashing all 15 quests on his first day. 15 silver coins. To him, this feels like an absolute jackpot. He had thanked her with a massive smile, promising to return the next day. That memory puts a massive grin on his face. Now, it is time for day 2 in civilization. He strolls through town, ignoring all the terrified stares from the locals. Walking like a boss who just got paid, he suddenly halts. His eyes light up with curiosity. Is that a library? He steps inside, and the librarian turns to greet a customer. Then, she shrieks in terror. This mountain of a barbarian is politely asking if he can check out some books. Later, once the panic subsides, Kettle sits quietly, totally absorbed in reading. The librarian just stares, completely unable to comprehend life anymore. Outside, Kane is spying through his binoculars again, equally dumbfounded. A barbarian, reading quietly in a library? He wonders if these snowfield tribes are secretly highly intellectual. Kettle finishes a history book and gives a simple nod. The Empire won. He remembers the girl saying she was heading to the kingdom that fought them. So now, he finally understands what happened to that place. According to the text, the Empire is now a superpower, turning the kingdom of Barkan into a puppet. They have conquered half the continent and are still expanding. Kettle pauses, thinking about how wild the concept of world domination actually is. Bored with human history, he tosses it aside and grabs the book he actually wanted: non-human races. Right away, he is thrilled to discover that legendary fantasy creatures are very real in this world. The book details magical locations, like a dwarven cavern overflowing with rare minerals and legendary treasures. There is a fairy village, a floating city of celestials, and the legendary elven sanctuary, Ilo Sagrada. The text claims this elven paradise is a myth no human has ever found. Kettle just smirks, thinking he might just be special enough to find it. But as he flips the page, his smile fades. Wait, are there other places like his snowy homeland? He has reached the chapter on demon realms, which are forbidden to humans and crawling with horrific beasts. There are 5 in total, including the Forest of Silence, the Fiery Abyss, the Deep Sea, and the Deep Hole. Sounds cozy. Then there is the 5th one, the White Snowfield, his very own home. The book claims these zones house deadly threats that are thankfully locked away from human lands. Kettle is completely shocked. Just how massive is this world? His snowy home already felt completely infinite, and yet there are 4 other places just like it. Having read enough, he stacks his books neatly and stands up, making the librarian jump again. On his way out, he flashes her a friendly grin and thanks her for the awesome books. With a polite wave, Kettle leaves the building, the entrance bell jingling behind him. He goes straight to the guild, asking a startled Rosa for more work. The moment she hands him a new quest flyer, his face completely lights up. Meanwhile, from the shadows, Swordmaster Kane keeps watching. After 2 days of stalking, he has concluded one thing. This barbarian is extremely bizarre, and it is time for a direct confrontation. That night, Kettle walks through town, feeling great about a hard day of work. He checks his coin pouch. Even these tiny side quests are starting to stack up nicely. At this rate, he will be a famous mercenary in no time. But suddenly, eyes watch him from a dark alleyway. A cloaked figure steps out, completely blocking his path. Kettle stops, giving him a confused look. It is the old man from earlier, looking incredibly serious under his hood. Kettle remains calm, casually pointing out that the old guy has been tailing him all day. Kane completely freezes. The legendary master of stealth, caught red-handed. Kettle crosses his arms, demanding to know what he wants, while Kane is stuck on a single thought. He noticed me? Kane was positive. His aura concealment was absolutely flawless. Seeing the silent, cloaked stranger, Kettle quickly jumps to a conclusion. Cracks his knuckles, asking if the old guy is a bandit. Kane just stares in absolute disbelief. Since he does not reply, Kettle takes it as a yes. Guess even peaceful towns have criminals. Kane goes to deny it, then hesitates. Would this kid even believe he is a legendary swordmaster? Suddenly, Kettle looks at him with pure pity, asking if times are so tough he is mugging people in his golden years. Kettle gets a brilliant idea. Bagging a bandit would look fantastic on his rookie mercenary record. Kane just stares, utterly baffled by how this conversation derailed so incredibly fast. But then, Kane gets an idea of his own. If the giant thinks he is a thief, this is the perfect chance to test him. But before he can even blink, Kettle vanishes, just completely gone. Kane whips around in absolute shock, only to find Kettle already behind him. Red eyes glowing, the giant reaches out. Realizing he is about to be pinned, Kane unleashes a burst of green energy to block. Kettle backs off, grinning. Not bad, Gramps. You are pretty fast. Kane lands several feet away, his mind absolutely racing. He cannot believe this monster almost grabbed him using nothing but pure, unadulterated physical strength. He did not feel a single drop of aura. Meanwhile, Kettle just stands there smiling as if this is a game. Kane grits his teeth. This is no longer a test. He is going all out. But in a flash, Kettle vanishes again. He is simply too fast. Before Kane can react, Kettle has already grabbed his wrist. The legendary swordmaster is completely stunned. Even with his heightened senses, he could not react in time. The grip is like a solid vise of steel, effortlessly dragging his entire body along. As he struggles, Kane realizes he is completely outclassed in raw strength. The difference is comical. He decides to unleash his true might. Kettle notices a blinding light gathering in Kane's palm, right before the old man releases a massive shockwave. The explosion erupts in a massive flash, forcing Kane backward. He lands panting heavily, sparks still flying from his hands. But Kettle is completely untouched, joking that bandits have some wild tricks nowadays. Talk about a cheap trick. Kane is absolutely furious. Why does this absolute idiot keep calling him a bandit? That was mana materialization, a high-tier warrior technique. Yet Kettle treats it like garbage, a total joke. But Kettle just stares back with a massive, goofy grin. Kane is speechless. That slash could split solid steel, yet Kettle has 0 scratches. Kane just stares at that absurd body, is trying to figure out how bare skin tanked a direct hit. Kettle steps up, saying it is time to wrap this up. Kane finally goes for his sword, but before he can grab the hilt, Kettle stops him with just one finger. Kane's eyes practically pop out. This is impossible. He exerts every ounce of his strength, but he cannot push past a single finger. Then he looks up, seeing Kettle's eyes glowing purple once more. A single tear of despair falls. Realizing it is over, a quick chop knocks him out cold. Holding up the sleeping swordmaster, Kettle assumes this is just how standard fantasy bandits look. Minutes later, he shows up at the guardhouse dragging Kane behind him. The guard stammers, utterly lost for words. He cannot process this. Did a random barbarian actually trash a superhuman single-handedly? Kettle casually announces he caught a thief. The guard cannot hide his sheer disbelief, and Kettle asks if this bounty completes his mercenary quest. The guard's brain short-circuits. That is Swordmaster Kane. a literal living legend, and this guy is hauling him like trash. Finally, the guard yells that Kane is no thief. Kettle's mind immediately leaps to conclusions. Oh, so you know him? If he is not a thief, you must be his accomplice. Panicking, the guard snaps to attention, bowing to the unconscious hero, saluting Swordmaster Kane of the Gera Kingdom. You can practically hear the single gear in Kettle's brain slowly grinding. He looks down, staring at Kane. A Swordmaster is just a petty thief? No way. He is not buying it. Kettle insists Kane tried to rob him. The guard begs him to listen, claiming he knows that face. He would never make a mistake. While he tries to explain, Kettle concocts his own bizarre logic. Maybe Swordmaster is just a fancy slang term for thieves. The guard just stares at him. What is this lunatic talking about? After a long, awkward silence, the guard decides this exceeds his pay grade, reporting it straight to the Lord. Soon, Lord Luke Barkin is losing his mind. Kane was beaten? Now, you and I can only imagine how painfully awkward the apology match becomes. It is a constant loop of my bad. No, it was my bad. Watching from the door, Lord Barkin tries to process this. He anticipated a fight, sure, but not Kane getting completely destroyed. The reality is simple, yet terrifying. This wild barbarian is stronger than Swordmaster. Even if Kane is just a rookie, that title carries massive weight. Besting him makes Kettle a highly volatile anomaly, and Barkin wants zero part of this disaster. He claims it was a massive misunderstanding, leaving them alone to chat. Once the door shuts, the room returns to that agonizing silence. The second-hand embarrassment is real, as Kane takes a trembling sip of tea, his pride thoroughly shattered after that beatdown. Attempting to salvage his dignity, he introduces himself properly as Kane, the Swordmaster. Kettle, being his usual dense self, asks if Swordmaster is his surname. Kane explains that masters of his caliber do not use last names. Kettle nods, then inquires about that glowing energy technique. He wonders if it is some special ability. Kane casually conjures a green spark in his palm, asking if he refers to this. Instantly, Kettle's eyes sparkle. He confesses he thought it was a cheap gimmick at first. But knowing it is a high-level technique, he thinks it is awesome. Kane explains it is called aura, derived from a primal energy known as mystic. Kettle finally connects the dots, looking like a kid on Christmas. He immediately begs to learn the trick. Kane explains that mystic is the ultimate source of energy. Warriors mold it into aura, while mages shape it into mana. Kettle flashes a sly smirk. So literally anyone can utilize mystic. Can you train me? Kane hesitates, but Kettle leans forward with a massive smile, pleading for lessons. Ultimately, Kane relents. Though, he still has one question. Why seek guidance when Kettle is vastly superior? Kettle admits he is completely clueless, having fought purely on raw instinct. Hearing this, Kane's spirits instantly soar. This is his golden opportunity. He can mentor this wild barbarian and reclaim his shattered ego. Sitting up straight, he proudly proclaims that a swordmaster shall instruct him. But a swordmaster is nothing without a weapon. Without it, he is barely half a man. Kettle nods in agreement, saying that explains why he felt so weak without a blade. Kane dies inside all over again, and Kettle just keeps going, adding that he thought it was super weird. If Kane actually had his sword, maybe he would have survived. Kettle smiles innocently, completely clueless. Meanwhile, Kane is weeping internally as his confidence takes another massive hit. Trying to gather his remaining sanity, Swordmaster Kane begins the lecture. He notes that true swordsmanship requires infusing a weapon with aura, not just swinging randomly. Kane claims his signature style makes illusion a reality. To test his observation, Kane asks what Kettle saw during the fight with his student. Kettle immediately recalls the blade dividing into 3 strikes. That must be materialization, Kettle concludes, picking it up instantly. You and I can see Kane is losing his mind, confirming this through gritted teeth, clearly annoyed. Kane stands proud, stating that a master must fuse the blade with spirit. He demonstrates, channeling green energy into his sword until it glows brightly. Kettle's eyes light up, realizing that is aura. Stunned, Kane can only offer a simple nod. He still cannot believe he is teaching a barbarian, deciding a live demonstration beats explaining. He takes a deep stance to show him how it's done. He concentrates, determined to show off his greatness. With a massive downward swing, he unleashes a flurry of emerald slashes across the training hall, carving deep gouges into the stone floor. Kettle watches intently without blinking, noticing the attack divided into 5 paths. As the dust clears, Kane boasts that while many project fake illusions, only his style can give them solid form. Looking incredibly proud, he asks for feedback. Kettle responds with the absolute most disrespectful, straightforward comment ever. He thinks he can pull that off too. Kane immediately shuts down the nonsense. Internally, he is screaming, remembering the agonizing years it took to learn this style. Kettle cuts his rant short, claiming a quick demo is faster. He grabs a massive battle axe, leaving Kane utterly bewildered. An axe? Kettle braces his legs and swings, moving the heavy weapon with such absurd velocity it leaves multiple afterimages. Kane goes dead silent. Then, the horrifying truth dawns on him. Kettle achieved this purely, through speed and brute strength. He slams the axe down, unleashing a massive shockwave that tears up the hall in a blinding explosion. Kane stares in absolute disbelief as smoke rises from the weapon. Grinning smugly, Kettle asks for his opinion, knowing exactly how cracked he is. Kane struggles to process it. It looked like materialization, but it was just absurd velocity and muscle. He was almost fooled. He claims it was just a basic, unrefined swing, but Kettle counters. If the outcome is identical in battle, does the flashy style even matter? That completely silences Kane. He knows the monster is right. His pride is severely damaged. Refusing to take the defeat, Kane snaps, asking how he will handle this next move. Channeling his energy, he summons multiple solid clones of himself. Now Kettle looks genuinely shocked. It literally looks like Kane duplicated his entire body. The clones charge simultaneously, their combined strike obliterating the ground and leaving a giant, smoking crater. Kane proudly boasts about the incredible level of control required. He dares Kettle to replicate the feat. Kettle does not even reply. He merely steadies his feet and hoists that giant axe again. Suddenly, he begins spinning at high speeds, turning into a whirlwind of absolute destruction. This is bad news for Kane. The rotation intensifies, creating a localized tornado that tears stone slabs right off the walls. When the chaos finally settles, Kettle is standing calmly in the center of the ruins, asking for Kane's thoughts. This completely shatters the Swordmaster's spirit. Kane collapses to his knees, sobbing that his life's work is a joke. He is done. The end. Our Grand Swordmaster is crying on the floor. You and I might laugh, but Kettle just looks down, unimpressed by his weak mental state, before complimenting Kane, saying your swordsmanship is actually incredible. Kettle confesses he only swings his axe fast using basic brute force. Kane, however, is different. Those afterimages of his, completely real, and they were spectacular. Kettle admits he could never reach that level of mystery. That tiny compliment instantly revives Kane's dead ego. His skills still matter. He proudly declares that blending illusion and reality is a supreme art only he can master. Boom. Just like that, his ego is back. Eyes blazing, he realizes his style is perfect. Kettle is just a complete freak of nature. No normal person could mimic that speed without any aura. Once Kane calms down, Kettle asks again for a lesson in real swordsmanship. Kane quickly pulls himself together and apologizes for the dramatic meltdown. With his pride patched up, he finally starts teaching. He explains that to control aura, you must first unlock the mystery. No warrior or mage can reach the top without it, unless they are priests borrowing divine power. Kettle asks if holy energy is different. Kane confirms it. A priest's power is gifted by deity, not generated from their own strength. Kettle is totally locked in. Kane explains that mystery is a latent force inside everyone. How you shape it defines everything, turning into aura, mana, or spiritual energy. Awakening it is step 1. He reveals there are 5 stages to mastering this force, beginning with simply sensing the mystery. Kettle wonders if anyone can do it, but Kane laughs. Without talent, you are blind to it. Those who barely feel it are deemed third-rate. Based on your raw control, you are ranked into 5 tiers. We are talking third-rate, second-rate, first-rate, superhuman, and finally, hero level. Hearing this, Kettle suddenly remembers a piece of his past. Kane brushes it aside, calling the ranks mere guidelines. No need to stress yet. Kettle nods in understanding, prompting Kane to declare that it is finally time for some real practice. He watches like a hawk, ready to guide Kettle through the basics. To sense mystery, Kane instructs him to tap into a completely dormant sensory level. The instructions are basic. Feel the wind. Feel the earth. Kettle concentrates with all his might, opens his eyes, and blankly admits he feels absolutely nothing. Kane is flabbergasted. He assumed a monster like him would get it instantly. Strong guys usually excel at this, but Kettle is a total anomaly. Kettle shrugs, saying his frozen homeland has never felt this power. Kane quickly pivots to plan B. He will force start the process by pumping his own energy directly into Kettle. Kettle gasps, asking if this is an aura transfer. Kane gives a vague confirmation. Totally odd, Kettle nods. He had only ever read about this in textbooks. Kane places a hand on his back, telling him to relax. But the second contact is made, Kane gets hit with a massive shock. What is this physique? It literally feels like touching solid bedrock. Kane begins to question if Kettle is even human. Kettle calls him out, making Kane awkwardly apologize for spacing out. Getting serious, he begins channeling aura inside, aiming to awaken Kettle's sleeping power. Radiant green energy surges, and Kane expects instant success. But wait, something is totally off. Kane freezes, baffled. There is simply no path. He can't even get inside to look. It is like searching a massive, endless void. Realizing it is a hopeless dead end, Kane finally pulls his hand back. Kale immediately panics, asking if he has zero talent. Kane reassures him it is not about talent. He must forge his own path to unlock that strength. Caleb understands, but he is still worried. Wait, are you saying I can never feel mystery? Kane struggles to respond. He could not even test Caleb's potential, because his physical makeup is so bizarre. It is so unbelievably dense that it acts like natural armor, completely blocking external aura. Kane admits he has never seen such a freakish body. His raw muscle is literally rejecting magic. Kettle slumps, totally bummed. So no magic power. You and I know there is hope, and Kane suggests consulting other swordmasters or magic tower mages. Kane apologizes, but Kettle waves it away. It is fine. Hope still exists. Flash of a massive grin, he sincerely thanks Kane for the effort. Kane watches him, thinking of other barbarians he has met, savage beasts who only love conflict. But Kettle? He is totally unique. Kane asks if he would consider staying in the kingdom, offering him a prestigious title and high rank. Kettle bluntly refuses, saying he serves no one. He does not belong to anybody. Kane hoped this savage's strength could help secure their freedom from the Empire. Desperate, he tries again, offering nobility. Kettle simply smiles, completely unfazed by the offer. He will walk his own path. Kane is startled, but quickly gains respect for his resolve. Kettle gives a final, heartfelt thank you, promising to remember this, and walks away. Seeing him walk off, Kane realizes trying to tame this beast was purely foolish. You cannot cage a man like that. He moves solely by his own will, making him more terrifying than any regular barbarian. The heavy sigh, Kane's thoughts shift to the crazy emperor and his obsession with conquering the demon world. Shortly after, Lord Barkin sits at his desk, already briefed on the situation. Kane reports that endless lives are being thrown away. He suspects the emperor is trying to copy some legendary ancient ruler. Shaking his head, he adds that the imperial army has not even unified the human nations yet, making this quest insane. Barkin instantly gets it. The emperor will target their lands next. Kane nods grimly. Their home is still technically part of the empire, meaning a draft order could drop any time. Leaning back, Kane complains about this chaotic world and the emperor's sheer lunacy. Suddenly, Barkin's tone shifts. He leans close and asks about a dark rumor. Kane confirms it is real. Demon activity is spiking everywhere, dungeons are popping up, and whispers claim something is slipping out from the underworld. Whatever it is, disaster is coming. Kane notes that Kettle showing up right now is highly suspicious timing. Barkin agrees that the coincidence is too weird. Kane asks for his thoughts, but Barkin is totally clueless. At least Kettle hasn't tried to smash their faces in yet. He is a walking enigma. Meanwhile, our mysterious giant is taking a stroll around town when he notices things are a bit weird. People are actively diving out of his way, clutching their children in terror. Kettle's genius conclusion? Clearly, it is his fashion choice. Obviously, his wild beast skin vest screams savage. He decides it is shopping time. He spots an incredibly fancy tailor shop. What is the worst that could happen, right? The tailor turns around and almost dies on the spot. A literal giant is standing inside his boutique. Holding back tears, the poor guy stammers that they do not stock his massive size. But seeing Kettle's disappointment, he quickly promises to stitch a custom outfit. This instantly brightens Kettle's day, and he eagerly approves. The tailor nods, but internally, he is picturing 20 ways this giant could murder him. Later, on his way to the Adventurer Guild, something shiny catches his eye. A tiny, glowing blue marble. Oh yes, side quest unlocked. He inspects it closely, totally captivated by the swirling energy inside. Thinking the guild might have answers, he pockets the strange item and heads inside. He presents the glowing orb to Rosa, asking if she can identify it. He drops it into her hand, explaining he found it on the pavement. Rosa examines it, looks handmade and pricey, but lacks any signature. Suddenly, her eyes go completely blank. A second, later snap. Kettle wakes her up. For a moment, she just stares blankly as if her soul left her body. Kettle asks if she is okay, noting the orb seemed to suck her mind in. Rosa remembers nothing, but feels a weird vibe. She offers to appraise it, but Kettle chuckles, saying solving this mystery himself is half the fun. Let's see where this goes. Kettle asks for his daily chores. She hands him the usual grind, cleaning and gathering. Kettle absolutely beams. Another long day of manual labor done, he finally heads back to his room. Total bliss. He pulls out that weird orb, still wondering what it did to Rosa. Suddenly, A creepy whisper echoes from inside. "Come to me," the voice repeats, planting, coordinates directly in his brain. Domination magic, probably. But the orb keeps pulsing with that creepy invitation, so naturally, Kettle decides to follow it. The voice guides him right to a dark cave. Kettle announces his arrival, asking who summoned him. A sinister voice replies, laughing at the stupid barbarian who just walked in, calling him a decent enough sacrifice. It's a skeletal mage with glowing blue fire in its eyes. Sitting on a throne inside a massive ritual circle, it boasts that its revival is close. So, who is this bony drama queen? An ancient, wicked sorcerer who caused wars from the shadows until some heroes shut him down. To escape death, he ditched his mortal body and sealed his soul inside a vessel, becoming a terrifying lich who can't die as long as his soul jar is safe. To get a new body, he hid near this tiny town, scattering blue orbs to bait gullible sacrifices. These orbs act as batteries for his resurrection and generic plans for world domination. The plan was going great until one massive hitch showed up. Why on earth is there a giant barbarian here? He picked this remote town to avoid powerhouses, so Kettle makes no sense. Still, watching through magic, the lich decides this massive guy is the perfect sacrifice. His orb only brainwashes people without magic, so he assumes Kettle is just a brainless brute. He sends the invitation, "Come in, barbarian, be my final puzzle piece." Kettle walks right up, shoves the massive wooden door open, and steps inside. Right away, he spots the skeletal mastermind in dusty robes. Kettle is hyped. It is an actual, honest-to-God lich. Talk about a Final Fantasy boss. But now, the lich is completely bewildered. He demands to know who Kettle is, especially since his mind control clearly just tanked. Kettle spots the bones on the ground, figuring out the whole trap. Since the lich can't sense any mana, he assumes Kettle has some ultra-rare artifact shielding his mind. Kettle just bluntly tells him he is empty-handed. Annoyed, the lich raises his glowing staff. If mind control fails, physical violence always works. He summons a horde of armed skeleton minions to attack. They rush him, but Kettle just smirks. "Seriously, you and I knew these bony guys stood zero chance." One bare-handed punch, and the first skeleton absolutely explodes. Kettle stretches his hands, complaining that this boss is kind of a letdown. That completely breaks the lich. Furious, he orders his remaining minions to tear Kettle limb from limb. Kettle just chuckles, cracking his knuckles. Bam! One punch, and a skeleton becomes powder. Crack! A kick obliterates another. Losing his mind, the lich powers up his staff for his trump card. He summons his strongest warrior. Kettle watches as a massive, armored skeleton knight rises, sporting a giant sword and shield. Instead of running, Kettle gets incredibly excited. Finally, a real challenge. The lich orders the kill, and the knight charges like a freight train. Kettle just grins, cracking his knuckles again. The monster swings its glowing blade, but Kettle doesn't even flinch. Sure, a boss-level skeleton knight is cool and all, but one solid punch completely obliterates its skull. The giant beast shatters into a million flying pieces. The lich is left staring in pure disbelief, totally speechless after that absolute beatdown. As the dust settles, Kettle casually stomps on the knight's twitching hand, crushing it flat. Already bored, he looks back and asks, "Is that it?" The lich desperately scans Kettle, but his magic reveals absolutely nothing. No mana, no secret weapons, no hidden artifacts. Did this random barbarian seriously just punch out a high-tier summon with bare fists? Realizing this guy is a total anomaly, the lich decides to handle business personally. Calling it an honor, he floats down dramatically, trying to look like the ultimate final boss. Suddenly, Kettle stumbles back as a thick, pitch-black fog wraps around his body. The lich's voice booms through the cavern, warning the barbarian that he will pay dearly for invading his sanctuary. But Kettle just looks completely confused. He points out he only came because the orb summoned him. Didn't the lich leave it out as bait? So technically, the lich invited him here. That completely triggers the lich. He screams for silence, proudly declaring himself the legendary mage who destroyed 5 nations, Carlos Bernoullis Kessi. Hearing this, Kettle immediately thinks of the Elf Queen, wondering if ridiculously long, goofy names are just a normal thing in this world. Done boasting, Carlos unleashes a massive vortex of dark magic, screaming that Kettle will feed his resurrection. The spell wraps around Kettle, leaving his eyes completely glassy and spinning. Carlos starts gloating. This signature spell tortures victims with dark, depressing thoughts until their minds shatter. He is totally convinced a magicless brute is completely done for. Easy victory. But then, he gets a weird gut feeling. Deciding to capture Kettle alive instead, Carlos orders his remaining skeletons forward. Another skeleton crawls out of the dirt, blade drawn, marching toward the seemingly dazed barbarian. But right before it strikes, a sharp purple spark flashes in Kettle's eyes. He spins around, instantly throwing a kick so insanely powerful the skeleton's torso literally turns to dust. Guess he wasn't so helpless after all. He looks back at the Lich, completely unfazed. Carlos is speechless again. How is this happening? That spell was foolproof. Kettle just shrugs, asking if the Lich is going to keep staring, since his little mind trick obviously failed. Ignoring him, Carlos channels every ounce of his remaining mana, chanting dramatically. He unleashes his ultimate attack, a massive sphere of dark energy, threatening to swallow everything in sight. Kettle's reaction? His eyes light up like a kid on Christmas. You and I can already guess how this turns out. Carlos cackles, thinking he won. He completely depleted his mana, but there is no way a magicless barbarian survived that blast. He looks up, expecting to see a giant smoking crater, but freezes in absolute horror. Kettle is standing there without a single scratch. He even compliments the show, asking if that's really all he's got. Carlos completely loses his mind. His ultimate spell, break legendary heroes, yet it did 0 damage. He shrieks, demanding to know what Kettle is. But Kettle is just curious. The attack looked flashy, yet he felt absolutely nothing. The Lich trembles as Kettle picks up his battle axe with a chilly smile, announcing it's his turn now. But right before Kettle can turn him to powder, the Lich has a sudden epiphany. A twisted grin spreads across his skull. He's figured it out. He's now totally convinced Kettle knows exactly who he is, claiming his arrival proves he's a secret agent. Kettle just blinks, wondering what on earth this crazy pile of bones is babbling about. Carlos bursts into a classic villain laugh, bragging that the Empire must truly fear him to find him so quickly. His ego is completely out of control. He screams that he'll rise again to destroy the world. Having heard rumors of a secret project creating human superweapons, he's convinced Kettle is one, engineered specifically to hunt him down. Still, he won't go out quietly. He screams his full name again, swearing to crush the Empire. Kettle only has one simple thought. This guy is completely out of his mind. Done talking, the Lich summons a glowing, ghostly urn. It's his phylactery, his soul vessel. He grabs it, preparing his final desperate gambit. Suddenly, boom! A massive beam of dark energy blasts from the urn, hitting Kettle dead in the chest. His eyes roll back. Did it work? The Lich's plan is to possess Kettle's body. It's a permanent trap, unless he converts to a Lich again, but it's his only survival option. He dives in, declaring the body is his. But the very second the moment Kratos enters Kettle's mind, he realizes he made a terrible mistake. Looking around in absolute horror, he wonders what this place even is. Can a barbarian's head really hold such a terrifying nightmare world? It shakes him to his core. Something is horribly wrong here. He even starts doubting if the Empire actually sent this guy. As his soul begins tearing apart, he realizes the terrifying truth. No way could the Empire build a horror this massive. It is literally shattering his mind. With one final whimpering squeak, the great Lich Kratos is completely erased. Meanwhile, Kettle just scratches his head. He wonders what that weird sensation was. Honestly, it just felt like a tiny little tickle. Right then, the Lich's hollow body collapses to the floor. You would think he would be thrilled, but Kettle is actually disappointed. See, he thought the spell looked incredibly flashy and wanted to learn it. Walking over to the remains, he figures Liches in this world are total pushovers. He has absolutely no clue what just went down. He is completely oblivious to his own mental defense. Still, a victory is a victory. It is time to grab the loot. Picking up the staff, he remembers how it glowed earlier. That gives him an idea. Perhaps this shiny stick will finally let him cast spells too. He stashes it away, or as he calls it, puts it in his pocket. Then he spots something else, a strange urn, guessing it might be a life vessel. So, he decides to bring it to Rosa for a quick appraisal. With the loot secured, his pro-gamer instincts suddenly activate. He notices a weird pattern on the wall that he completely missed earlier, a secret room. He wonders, then does exactly what you and I would do. He presses the button. Sure enough, the wall slides open, revealing a hidden chamber. He steps inside and discovers a chamber packed with people standing frozen like stone statues. His immediate reaction is not worry, but pure excitement that secret rooms actually exist. But then, he gets a second thought. Who are all these frozen folks? He waves a hand in front of a guy's face and yells out to him. He tries another, asking if anyone is home, but gets zero response. Now he has no idea what to do with a room packed with living statues. Ultimately, he decides to just walk away and leave it alone. Honestly, solid logic there. Let the guild deal with it. Back at the mercenary headquarters, Kettle strolls in with his fresh haul. Rosa greets him warmly, totally shocked he returned so quickly. He casually mentions he just had a minor errand to run. No big deal. Just exterminating an ancient evil. Rosa is completely lost, so Kettle explains the orb and his target. She laughs, warning him not to joke about such dark things. I mean, one of only 5 liches in existence hiding in their tiny village? Hilarious. It sounds utterly ridiculous. So, Kettle slams the massive purple urn onto her desk. That gets her attention instantly. He calmly explains it is the lich's phylactery and asks for a quick appraisal. Rosa's brain completely short-circuits as she realizes he is actually telling the truth. Then, our boy casually mentions there are a bunch of frozen people down there, too. He explains they looked half dead anyway, so he just left them for the guild to handle. That is when the pieces click for Rosa. She finally connects the dots to the town's missing people. Leaping up, she yells that she will call backup immediately. Moments later, a guard bursts in, sweating and asking about a lich. Kettle just gives a lazy wave and greets him, saying he already took care of it. The guard nervously stammers out the ancient monster's name, and when Kettle nods, the poor man's brain completely breaks. See, Kratos was a legendary calamity. A century ago, he drove emperors insane and wiped 5 entire kingdoms off the face of the earth. The guard cannot process that such a monster was lurking near their sleepy town. Kettle just shrugs, claiming the skeleton guy was underwhelming. He did some weird magic and basically defeated himself. The guard is speechless. Sweating bullets, he begs for details, but Kettle's single functioning brain cell has officially clocked out. He has got nothing left. Realizing this situation is way above his pay grade, the guard rushes off to report directly to the Lord. When the news reaches Lord Barkin, he is absolutely furious. A legendary lich right on his border? The guard nods, bringing up testimonies from rescued citizens as proof. Not to mention, they have the phylactery. Barkin immediately realizes the massive headache this causes. A threat this huge will draw imperial eyes, and his strongest knight is out of town. Slamming his hand on the desk, he orders an urgent dispatch to the capital. Honestly, Barkin knows they got insanely lucky. If Kettle had not stumbled upon Kratos so quickly, they would have been the very first to die. The timing was immaculate, but the achievement is still completely mind-blowing. Our muscular barbarian deserves a massive reward. But what on earth do you give someone who can solo a legendary lich? The very next morning, panicked, shouting echoes through the halls. Barkin, already up, calmly tells his guards to let the visitor in. The doors slam open and a breathless maid bursts into the room. The sun god's elite inquisitor, Lady Aquaz, has just arrived. Barkin's eyes widen. Why would a powerhouse like her travel all the way to his backwater territory? And just like that, she steps inside. Sometime later, Barkin sits opposite her, offering a respectful welcome as the local ruler. She formally introduces herself as Aquaz, Inquisitor of the Sun God, a holy judge tasked with punishing the wicked. Barkin already knows her fearsome reputation. She is the youngest, most formidable Inquisitor on the entire continent, legendary for hunting dark mages. Her authority is absolute. Skipping the pleasantries, Aquaz gets right to business, noting his land is in quite a state. Barkin tries to laugh it off, praying she is not here for the lich. Finally, he asks what brings her to town. She looks back and explains she was guided by a divine revelation. Barkin is floored, but before she shares the holy message, she demands an update. She wants to hear all about the town's recent battle. As he recounts the fight, her eyes grow wider. A lone barbarian took down a lich? Barkin nods, mentioning it was the infamous Kratos. That name hits her like a freight train. What? That legendary monster was here? To prove it, Barkin presents the phylactery. The moment her eyes land on the purple urn, her composed mask completely shatters. What on earth happened here? She whispers, clutching her holy symbol tightly. Her mind races with a single question. Is this barbarian still around? Barkin confirms it. Yes, our ridiculously overpowered warrior is still resting nearby. He adds that the guy keeps pulling off impossible feats, and casually drops that Kettle also thrashed Swordmaster Kane. That completely leaves Aquaz speechless. Now, fully aware of this mysterious new powerhouse, she urgently asks which tribe he belongs to. Barkin replies, Kettle claims to hail from the White Wasteland. That answer hits her like a physical strike. The White Wasteland is a frozen desert crawling with demons, and she hates the sound of that. Then, everything clicks. The puzzle pieces suddenly fall into place, an unidentified force emerging from demon territory. She wonders if this barbarian is the exact reason her god sent her here. Barkin is left completely bewildered. Aquaz, now fully resolved, declares she must confront this barbarian immediately. Meanwhile, Kettle is chilling in his room, inspecting the glowing gemstone he snatched from the lich's broken staff. He figures it is some kind of magical booster, deciding to ask a real wizard about it later. That thought is cut short as he realizes the sun is already up. Morning has arrived. Right on cue, a guard arrives with an urgent message. The sun god's inquisitor has requested a meeting at the cathedral. The guard warns him to show absolute respect. Kettle just smiles, telling him not to sweat it. The guard, slightly nervous, asks if he is ready. Dressed in his iconic barbarian gear, Kettle grins, saying, "Let's go." Now, you and I should know that the gods here are completely real. They grant actual power, and the church runs the entire system. Guided through the busy streets, Kettle stops right in front of the massive cathedral. Looking up, he gets super excited, totally impressed by the sun god's architecture. The guard mentions someone is waiting inside. Kettle thanks him, pushes open the heavy doors, and steps into the sacred hall. To his surprise, 3 nuns immediately step forward to welcome him. "Welcome, Sir Kettle," they say. One of them mentions that Inquisitor Aquaz is waiting and offers to guide him. They lead him to a beautiful room filled with flowers, where a mysterious woman stands waiting. She turns, introducing herself as Aquaz, Inquisitor of the Sun God. Keeping it casual, Kettle grins and introduces himself as Kettle the Barbarian. To him, she looks pretty. "All right, you and I are dealing with a super young Inquisitor, meaning she is either a genius or highly dangerous." Meanwhile, Aquaz is sweating, suspicious of why this smiling giant is so relaxed. Our main man Kettle skips the small talk and demands to know why he is here. She explains it is about the dungeon raid. Apparently, that lich he flattened was a legendary monster. She claims this boss was a Calamity-class threat only true legends could defeat, but Kettle just shrugs. He heard the hype, but honestly, that skeleton fought like a total clown and self-destructed. She clearly thinks he is trolling, so Kettle just closes his eyes and sighs. That is just what happened. Desperate for the truth, Aquaz drops a wild proposal, a divine lie detector powered by her god. Lie and the deity smites you. She expects him to back down and says he can pass, but Kettle gets super excited instead. Pass? No way. He actually wants to feel real divine power. This pure, childlike excitement completely breaks her brain. Why is this giant so happy? Confused, she asks if he is even a little nervous, but Kettle just blinks, completely missing her point. "I worry when you have nothing to hide." He has been completely honest, so there is zero stress. Seeing his sheer confidence, Aquaz yields and kicks off the holy ritual. Clasping her hands, she prays for the sun god to expose all lies. Immediately, a massive pillar of golden light erupts from the heavens, blasting right through the ceiling. Talk about dramatic flair. Kettle stands dead in the center, totally mesmerized. He feels an enormous, overwhelming presence looking down. But here is where you and I get a real shock. He can actually read the god's vibe. Complete confusion. Even the heavens have no idea what to make of this guy. The light fades, leaving Aquaz to sigh in relief. No divine smiting means he was telling the truth. She collects herself and announces that nobody can tell a single lie in this room now. Kettle just beams at her with his signature, carefree smile. "Challenge accepted, lady." With the zone active, the interrogation begins. Kettle retells the whole fight step by step, and the god stays totally silent. Aquaz has to face facts. The terrifying lich really got completely clowned on. She apologizes for her attitude, but Kettle just laughs it off. He actually had fun, but just as they are wrapping up, she drops a final, dead serious question that changes the whole mood. Leaning in close, she looks him in the eyes and asks the ultimate question. Is he truly from the legendary White Snowfield? He says yes instantly, and Aquaz completely freezes. He is really from the demon realm. Could this giant be the mythical gray barbarian of legend? But before she can think, Kettle flips the script. "Okay, my turn. Why are you really here?" She tries to dodge, claiming it is personal, but Kettle reads her like an open book. "You came to see if I was a monster, right?" Boom. Direct hit. She stammers, totally busted. No escaping this giant. Kettle points out that this crazy holy barrier is way too dramatic for a simple lie test. Cornered under her own god's gaze, she cannot tell a lie. "Did you come specifically for me?" Kettle presses. Flustered, she tries to deny it before finally cracking. There was an oracle. A prophecy brought her here, and she suspected he was the subject. This test only made her more confused. She explains everything and apologizes for being sneaky. Kettle, being the absolute Chad he is, just laughs it off and asks about the prediction. What did the oracle say? She hesitates. This is top secret divine intel, but something about Kettle makes her want to trust him. She whispers the prophecy, and whatever she says leaves him completely stunned. Later, Aquaz is staring out a window when Lord Barkin approaches. He can tell right away that something is seriously eating at her. What did our giant friend do to shake her up? She admits meeting Kettle only left her with more questions. What is he really? Barkin can only confirm one terrifying fact. The man is indeed a barbarian from the frozen White Snowfield. Getting intel from that hellhole is nearly impossible, but Kettle is definitely the real deal. Barkin hoped it was a mistake, because if the world finds out, panic will erupt. Everyone wants that land, especially the power-hungry emperor. If His Majesty gets involved, it is game over. Aquaz tells the panicking lord to chill out. They will bury this entire situation. They will cover up the Lich incident and lock down Kettle's identity. Barkin finally breathes. Then he asks the million-dollar question. Are all barbarians from the north this crazy strong? Aquaz highly doubts it. If they were all this overpowered, they would have conquered the world ages ago. Most of them are just brainless muscleheads with zero tactical thinking. But when one of those giant beasts actually develops a high-level brain, you get a monster like Kettle. Barkin mentions a rumor about a new barbarian king who fits that exact description. Aquaz confirms it. She has met this king, and he is absolutely nothing like a normal brute. Barkin smiles, imagining a colossal clash between Kettle and that king. Aquaz instantly shuts him down. Absolutely not. The tension between holy believers and barbarians is already a powder keg. Barkin sighs and shifts back to the main mystery. Why was the Oracle so obsessed with Kettle? She explains she had to verify if he was actually human, or some terrible entity wearing a human skin. Barkin freezes in shock. What did the prophecy say? When she finally whispers the truth, Barkin looks like he just saw a demon. Later, Kettle is summoned to the Lord's private office. Barkin tries some polite small talk, but our giant skips the pleasantries. He is fine, so why is he here? Barkin sighs and gives him a proper, heartfelt thank you for saving them. If that skeleton lord had been at full power, they would be dead. But now, the catch. This massive victory has to remain top secret. If the capital finds out, things get messy. If the emperor catches wind of this, he will act immediately. Kettle shrugs. He does not care about fame anyway. Still, Barkin insists on rewarding him and signals a servant. A massive, glittering pouch of treasure is brought forward. Kettle's eyes go wide, staring in total confusion. Barkin chuckles and tells him this is no ordinary bag, he should open it. Staring at the shiny pouch, Kettle is totally mesmerized by the glitz. Barkin rolls his eyes and explains it is a dimensional storage artifact. The space inside is basically room-sized. Kettle is absolutely stunned. It is his first time seeing an actual spatial artifact up close. Barkin explains it can swallow items larger than the opening itself. So, Kettle immediately tests it. Shoving his massive battle axe toward the tiny pouch, he watches it slide right inside. Barkin explains he just needs to visualize the item to pull it out. Kettle is practically drooling. He loves the gift and promises to put it to good use. But then, Barkin turns serious, bringing up Swordmaster Kane's reports. Horrible creatures from the demon realm are starting to invade. Could these attacks be linked to the prophecy? It warned that a catastrophic evil would strike this territory first before consuming the entire world. And things are already starting to get weird. A remote border village suddenly went completely silent. The neighboring town sent a search party, but they vanished. Barkin sent heavily armed guards to investigate, and they disappeared without a trace too. This was definitely no simple communication error. Over at the guild, Rosa posts an emergency high-priority quest from the Lord. When Kettle asks about it, she explains it is a scouting mission. Investigating that ghost town is incredibly dangerous, which explains why the gold reward is absolutely insane. That is literally all Kettle needs to hear. Rosa grins, knowing he is the perfect match. At the muster point, the other mercenaries are shivering with anxiety. Hayes stands apart, looking completely done with life. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out her name, and she looks up. Wait, is that really Kettle? Our giant friend grins, proudly flaunting a ridiculous new outfit. He claims his old clothes were ruined, so he custom-designed this new drip himself. Peak troll behavior. He joined the quest because he couldn't pass up the fun. When he asks if their old squad came along, Hayes admits they actually had functioning brain cells and stayed home. Kettle glances around, noticing that for a lucrative gig, this crowd is incredibly tiny. Hayes sighs, explaining that crazy high payouts usually mean a suicide mission, not a walk in the park. Plus, with all those terrifying rumors floating around about the disappeared guards, something nasty is definitely lurking. Kettle still complains about the boringly small crowd, so Hayes leans in to drop some juicy gossip. But she cuts herself off, letting out a nervous giggle as Aquas, the sun god's terrifying heretic inquisitor, suddenly shows up. Yep, she was the rumor. Her presence alone scared off the entire local adventurers guild, but Kettle just tells the sweating Hayes to relax, casually claiming Aquas is super sweet and gentle. Hayes is absolutely flabbergasted. Friends, how does a chaotic, wild barbarian become besties with a ruthless, zealot inquisitor? Before she can process this, Kettle strolls over to wave hello, only for Aquas to brutally shut him down. She cold shoulders him, saying she has zero memory of their friendship. Kettle laughs it off, suggesting they start right now. Ignoring his flirting, Aquas demands to know if Hayes serves Lady Colrosia. Kettle is impressed by her knowledge, but notices her expression darkening. When he asks what's up, she reveals that Colrosia's cultists should be resting indoors, meaning only high-ranking elite members should be out wandering. She shrugs it off a second later, just as Hayes starts calling them over. Right on cue, a fancy guard captain and his squad finally arrive, ready to start the search. Kettle greets the crew with massive golden retriever energy, leaving Aquas looking completely drained. Poor Hayes is just standing there, utterly overwhelmed by this chaotic party. The captain welcomes everyone who bravely accepted the call, and they hit the road. Soon, our squad is marching toward the silent village. Kettle assesses their lineup, joking that this feels like a high-level raid rather than a basic scouting job. Noticing that Aquas looks unusually tense, he asks if her world-ending prophecy is finally kicking off. She replies that the gods never gave her an exact calendar date, so this might just be a normal quiet town. Kettle keeps teasing, pointing out that a massive legendary evil was supposed to appear eventually. But instead of being terrified, Kettle sports a mischievous grin. The guy is actually excited for a fight. A few hours later, they halt at the village entrance. The captain notes the unsettling, absolute silence. He asks Aquas what her divine senses are picking up, and she confirms the worst. There is absolutely no one alive inside. A guard wonders if the locals just packed up and left, prompting the captain to order a thorough search. As they fan out, the captain is deeply unsettled. How do 100 people just vanish without a trace? Determined to get answers, he pushes the squad harder. Almost instantly, a soldier discovers something creepy and shouts for the captain. Inside a house, fresh food is sitting right on the dining table. The captain assumes they fled in a hurry, but the soldier drops a bombshell. The food is still warm. That makes zero sense, considering this place went silent days ago, and previous scouts vanished without a trace as well. Another mercenary reports back, confirming there are absolutely no signs of a struggle or hiding spots. The captain grimly orders them to keep digging, but everywhere they look, it is the exact same story. Plenty of signs of life, but not a single human body. A scout reports that while everything is physically intact, there is not one clue pointing to where they went. They literally just vanished. The captain begs Aquas for answers, but her divine radar is completely blank. Desperate, he turns to Kettle for some barbarian wisdom. Kettle shrugs, saying he has got nothing either. He picks up absolutely zero presence. Just as the captain begins to lose his mind, Kettle cheerfully suggests they just ask the expert. When the group stares at him like he is crazy, he points out the obvious. There is someone else sitting right there. The captain panics, and a mysterious woman materializes nearby with a smug grin. She acts surprised, claiming her stealth was flawless, and asks how on earth he spotted her. Kettle strolls up and drops some pure, unadulterated troll logic. She was not there before, and now she is. The woman chuckles, bragging that her high-level illusion magic usually tricks everyone into thinking she was always there. Even the Inquisitor failed to notice her. She studies Kettle, realizing he does not have a single drop of magic. Her grin turns sinister as she asks who he is. Instantly, the captain senses massive danger and orders a retreat. As the guards scramble backward, he notices Aquas has completely frozen in terror. Shaking, she whispers that she can't detect any power from this stranger. That sends a shiver down everyone's spine. If Aquas cannot read her, she is either a harmless civilian or a monster so overwhelmingly powerful that she bypasses divine senses. Mercilia sighs, complaining that she wanted to play stalker a bit longer. Then her face distorts into a horrifying, monstrous grin as she announces she has changed her mind. In a flash, she unleashes her true demonic form. Laughing like a maniac, she vows to enslave them all. With a snap of her claws, dark magic explodes outward, forming a massive sphere as she floats into the sky. Looking down like a proud queen, she mocks the paralyzed party. Even Kettle, Hayes, and Aquas can only watch in shock. A guard screams for everyone to run, but it is too late. A massive purple barrier slams down, locking them inside. The smug demon declares that the entire town is now her personal playground, and nobody escapes. Locking her glowing eyes onto the group, she gloat whispers that they are officially on the menu. While the rest of the squad is busy having a collective panic attack, Kettle looks incredibly intrigued. Hayes stammers that this is a legendary named demon, immediately falling to her knees in prayer. Kettle gently pats her head like a puppy, telling her to relax because he is right here. She looks up, totally confused if that is supposed to reassure her. Kettle folds his arms and asks why named demons are such a big deal. Hayes explains that regular monsters are just garbage leftovers of corrupted mana. True demons, however, are born of pure abyss and earn their names through sheer power. Even the pathetic ones can wipe out an entire nation. Kettle finally has a light bulb moment, realizing what the big fuss is about. Hayes weakly nods, identifying this beast as CDR, a legendary demon from centuries past, and can't fathom why she is here. Kettle casually strolls up to the magical barrier, wondering aloud if he can just punch his way through. Hayes tells him it's completely indestructible. The only escape is to defeat the boss. He taps the barrier, muttering that he gets it. Instantly, the glass-like wall begins to fracture under his finger. Realizing he might ruin the dramatic moment, he starts wildly flailing around, like a complete buffoon, desperately blocking her view of the cracks while laughing nervously. Hayes stares at his weird dance, totally bewildered. He just flashes her a bright thumbs up, keeping his secret. Suddenly, the focus shifts, back to the battlefield. The demon taunts Aquas, asking if she liked her little game with the townsfolk. Aquas recalls the creepy, half-eaten meals left on the tables, realizing this entire tragedy was just a sick demon's twisted joke. Utter disgust washes over her face. This monster treats human lives like cheap toys. Meanwhile, Kettle is just watching the dramatic standoff like a cinema movie, complete with 3D glasses and popcorn. Aquas quickly piece things together, realizing that summoning a named demon requires a colossal, bloody sacrifice way bigger than a single village. Plus, a beast this tier shouldn't have been able to mark territory without the church noticing. Under the blood-red moon, CDR just smirks, mocking her questions. Did you really think I would spoil my big master plan? Aquas clenches her fists, declaring this foul stain has no right to exist. The demon cackles loudly, sneering at the Holy Inquisitor. She mocks the little lapdog, asking if her precious deity can actually save her now. A CDR boasts that the world is fracturing and no longer belongs solely to mankind. Long ago, she explains, gods and mortals teamed up in a massive legendary war to banish them. They succeeded, casting all demons deep into the void. But from the abyss of hell, she has patiently waited for this exact moment. Then comes the grand reveal. She is a CDR, the demon of gravity, swearing to avenge her ancient defeat and swallow the world in darkness. Aqua snaps back, calling her a disgusting parasite, and declaring this world belongs solely to gods and humanity. She promises to send her straight back to hell. As she raises her hand, blinding holy light erupts, chanting her prayer. Aqua's is enveloped by a massive, glowing pillar of divine light. When it fades, she stands in glorious golden armor, holding a giant key-shaped holy sword. Kettle, being his usual self, of course, drops his review. Just as expected, the villain let her finish the entire magical girl transformation. With her power fully unlocked, Aquas glares at the demon, her eyes blazing with divine fury. A CDR is completely unbothered by her divine power. She just smirks, mutters, interesting, and casually crushes a ball of dark energy. Boom, a giant, terrifying purple scythe spawns right in her hands. She literally calls Aquas a dog of the gods and dares her to bite. Offended, the Holy Inquisitor charges in, screaming. Boom, holy gold slams into demonic purple, blinding everyone in the area. That epic clash triggers a massive shockwave, tearing the ground to shreds. But when the dust clears, a CDR is literally holding Aquas's giant weapon with a single bare claw. Talk about embarrassing. She starts mocking the Inquisitor for losing her dignity, asking if holy dogs have any shame. Aquas's eye twitches. She's officially done. A CDR just laughs and asks, "Are you done barking?" Aquas slams down in a burst of holy energy, ready to fight. But oops, a CDR vanishes instantly. A cold voice whispers from the dark, "I'm here." Before Aquas can turn, she's ambushed from behind. She barely gets her golden shield up before those demonic claws smash in. A CDR grins, telling her to get crushed as a dark explosion blasts the Inquisitor back. She's struggling to stay upright, cracks web across her shield, so Aquas starts chanting holy scriptures. None may trespass upon the light. And guess what? It actually works, unleashing a blinding burst of golden light. The blast throws the demon back. Aquas stands in holy fire, glaring, but a CDR just shrugs it off, looking impressed. She patronizingly compliments her for being able to read scripture at her age. Ignoring the trash talk, Aquas quotes Carmenon chapter 5, verse 59. But this time, a CDR casually blocks the divine blast with her wing. Time for Aquas to change her tactics. She rushes in for a frenzy of close-range attacks. But a CDR is way too fast, dodging like she's playing around. Aquas is sweating bullets, while the demon is having the time of her life. Their weapons collide in another massive shockwave, shattering the streets. The shockwave literally blasts the rest of the party away, screaming in sheer terror. Meanwhile, back in the center of the action, these two monsters are still locked in a brutal deathmatch. And Kettle? He's just standing there, grinning and enjoying the free show. Hayes runs over in a panic, begging him to help. Kettle casually looks at him and says, "Sure, I could help, but why should I?" Hayes is left completely speechless. Kettle's logic is flawless, it's not his problem, and besides, he doesn't want to ruin a perfectly good show. He admits he wants to fight a demon himself eventually, but right now, he's comfy spectating. Hayes is mind blown. Is this really their hero? While they bicker, light and dark explode again. A Seedier blocks another attack, sneering that Aquaz really is just a glorified hunting dog. She brags about her superior demonic strength. But Aquaz spots an opening, convinced divine power always wins. Realizing she's stuck in a boring stalemate with zero benefits, a Seedier decides she needs a quick advantage. So, like any self-respecting villain, she suddenly targets the defenseless party members. Aquaz screams a warning and tries to intercept her, but the demon is just too fast. Seedier unleashes a brutal blast on the helpless adventurers. Talk about a cheap move! The party screams in horror, forcing a furious Aquaz to throw her own body in the way. She shields them from the explosion, her eyes blazing as she calls Seedier a filthy creature. The demon just laughs in her face. Like, did you seriously expect a demon to play fair? Furious, Aquaz starts chanting again, pulling out all the stops. She unleashes a massive flood of divine energy, forming a radiant sanctuary and screaming for everyone to get inside. Watching from the sidelines, Seedier is thoroughly amused. She mocks Aquaz for wasting her massive ultimate spell on defense, but the Inquisitor snaps back, telling her to shut her mouth. That only makes Seedier smirk wider. She loves a good reaction. Enough talk. Both of them charge. Aquaz swings her massive holy cross, sending a deadly golden arc slicing through the air. Seedier dodges effortlessly and floats above her, muttering some edgy line about death. She warps right next to her, whispering that nobody is going to remember her heroic little sacrifice anyway. She kicks her, sneering that she'll only bring shame to her god. Then comes the classic villain deal. Drop the shield protecting your friends, and maybe I'll let you win. Aquaz doesn't bite. She calls out the cheap trick, but Seedier just grins, asking if she honestly expects to leave alive. Aquaz braces her stance, done talking. The demon shrugs, guess you'll die a martyr. She fires a massive pillar of dark energy, forcing the Inquisitor to brace for impact. Then, in a flash, Seedier teleports right in front of her face. Before Aquaz can even react, the demon strikes. A massive blast sends Aquaz flying back. She looks up in pure shock as the demon rushes in again, lightning fast. Dark tendrils erupt, binding Aquaz completely. She's totally helpless. How is her divine sanctuary being completely overwhelmed by this darkness? Seedier cuts through her panic with a cold line. Enough. I'm sick of your boring scriptures. She drives her fist straight into Aquaz's stomach, completely shattering her golden protective aura. As another brutal blow comes flying in, Aquaz desperately tries to block. But spoiler alert, it doesn't matter. The shield shatters into a million golden sparkles. Seedier's energy blade slices straight through her armor, grabbing her shield's crystal core as the Inquisitor screams in agonizing pain. Just like that, Aquaz is defeated, bound in dark magic, and left writhing. With her down, the protective golden dome completely shatters. The party is left totally exposed, and Seedier just grins. She tells them not to worry, she's saving them for dessert. She turns back to Aquaz, wondering aloud what a holy dog tastes like. But as she opens her fangs, a calm voice interrupts. Stop. A hand grabs her face, stopping her dead in her tracks. It's Kettle. He tells her that's far enough. The demon is completely stunned, she couldn't even sense his presence. With a casual flick of his wrist, he sends the demon flying across the plaza. Kettle turns to Aquaz, asking if she's okay. Looking up in shock, she remembers who this guy is. The legend who beat Swordmaster Kane. But before she can process this, that terrifying pressure returns. Seedier crawls out of the rubble, absolutely furious, and glares daggers at them both. She screams, calling him an insolent barbarian for interrupting her meal. Kettle just folds his arms, completely unbothered, and casually replies, "She's my friend. I'm not letting her die." Seedier scoffs, saying she wanted to keep him as a little toy. Kettle just stares, completely deadpan, and says he's not interested in that. She flashes a wicked smirk and asks, "Really?" The giant purple scythe spawns back in her hand as she decides he'll have to die. But then, Aquaz tells him to step aside. She warns Kettle that he can't possibly beat a demon. He says he's strong enough, but she shakes her head. It's not about raw power. Only divine light can banish a demon. That's just how this world works. And inside a demon's domain, it's even worse. She warns him not to expect a miracle. Kettle mutters to himself, "So only divine power works?" He looks at her beaten state. "Even if that's true, you're clearly in no shape to fight." But Aquaz grits her teeth, insisting she must because she serves the gods. Kettle is actually impressed by her resolve. So this is the resolve of a holy warrior. He smiles, pats her head like a cute puppy, and tells her to leave it to him. Aquaz can only stare in sheer confusion. Kettle just grins and admits he wanted to fight a demon anyway. Acedir isn't impressed, reminding him he can't win. Kettle's grin widens as he challenges her to test that theory. The demon licks her sharp teeth, eager to watch his face twist in agony. She vanishes, a wormhole tearing open right in front of him. Claws ready, she lunges down. Aquaz screams. Acedir smiles like she's already won. But then, Kettle's giant fist slams straight into her face. Bam! The impact blows her head clean off, sending the demon flying. Aquaz just stares. She completely freezes, totally stunned. Like, did she really just see that? Did Kettle actually punch a demon's head clean off? Kettle, though, looks completely bored, like he is still figuring out what just happened. He stares at the headless demon and his eyes widen. Suddenly, a burst of dark energy flashes, and her entire body grows back from nothing. She is back, but Kettle just smiles, fascinated, realizing that crushing her head triggers her regeneration. Edric is absolutely furious and totally confused, demanding to know what he is. Kettle just scratches his head and gives the most annoying answer. He says he is just an ordinary barbarian. Yeah, right. She is not buying that for a second. She can't sense a single drop of magic or aura from him. He feels like a normal human, which makes zero sense. Fine then, if he won't talk, she will beat the answer out of him. A terrifying demonic face forms as she lunges, screaming for him to die. Kettle looks mildly surprised, muttering that hitting her human form feels a bit awkward. But with no other choice, he punches right through her. The demon is left stunned, utterly shocked as the blow sends her flying, sending a massive shockwave right through her body, shattering her form. She crashes to the ground, struggling to stand, unable to accept reality. How is that just a basic punch, she wonders. No aura, no magic. Kettle just cracks his knuckles with a satisfied smile, noting she regenerated again. Ezedric starts sweating. Meanwhile, Kettle is actively trying to figure out how her power works. Suddenly, he launches forward like a cannonball. She barely has time to react before he is suddenly right in her face. He throws another devastating punch, aiming straight for her head. Dark smoke pours from her body, turning into tendrils that pull her back together instantly. Kettle watches, genuinely impressed as she fully reforms. He grins, realizing that destroying her head just forces a brand new body to grow. Now, that sounds like a true demon, he notes, as he wonders if her head is the core. Itra begins to tremble as dark energy flares around her. This is insane. Does this guy seriously think raw, brute force can defeat her? She decides that matching force with force is pointless. She calls out to him, and Kettle answers back, completely clueless. With a wicked grin, she introduces herself. Listen well, for I am Esatir, the demon of gravity. Does he honestly think he can fight her with just his fists? Kettle pauses, then flatly says she does not look very impressive. That single comment completely destroys her pride. She snaps in pure rage, leaving Kettle looking highly confused. Now she is truly furious. Her eyes glow blood red as she charges, her weapon morphing into a heavy mallet. She fires a wave of gravity magic, but Kettle casually lifts one hand and stops it dead. Not bad, he remarks, though it is pretty heavy. Then, he shatters the mallet, sending that exact power blasting back at her before punching her head clean off again. This is impossible, she thinks. Yet, just like before, her body rebuilds itself in a flash of purple light. She is the demon of gravity, capable of packing the weight of an entire fortress wall into a single strike. Yet a regular barbarian with zero magic is completely overwhelming her. Kettle just watches with pure curiosity. Back again, huh? Are demons immortal? That casual question is the absolute last straw. Itra trembles with rage. She unleashes another massive burst of purple power, screaming in denial. Die, barbarian, she shrieks, conjuring a giant claw of dark energy above him. But here is Kettle's answer. He clenches his fist and punches straight up, completely shattering her magic. The strike rips through her attack like a shockwave, slamming directly into Esther and exploding as she screams inside her holy barrier. Aquas is left completely speechless. What is she even looking at right now? She remembers the legends of Esther, a demon who wiped out an entire kingdom centuries ago, and yet she is getting absolutely demolished by basic punches. It feels totally unreal. But once again, Esther twists back together in a surge of dark energy as her regeneration kicks in. She hits the ground, and Kettle casually steps on her head to pin her down. Truly impossible to kill, he realizes, seeing that raw physical strength alone will not finish her. Hearing this, etc. grins sharply from right under his boot. Pinned to the floor, she realizes his raw power is far beyond anything she could have anticipated, making her laugh like a complete maniac. Etc. demands to know what he is, and Kettle calmly repeats that he is just a normal barbarian. She snarls, refusing to believe his lies. Still, there is one last card she wants to play. A massive wave of dark magic suddenly erupts from her body, catching the entire group completely off guard. The energy rapidly compresses into a dense sphere. Then boom, it explodes, revealing her new form as she darkly tells our barbarians that she is going to use every ounce of her power. A barrage of dark spears manifests and flies straight at Kettle. He just grins, thrilled by the battle, while Aquaz panics, knowing raw strength alone won't win this fight. She starts gathering divine power, but Itra doesn't wait, unleashing her attack. A swarm of demonic spears rushes in, ready to skewer Kettle, but Kettle knocks away every single projectile without putting in any real effort. Cedric is left utterly stunned, shrieking in terror at what kind of monster he is. Then, in a blur, Kettle charges straight at her. Comprehend this. Aquaz begins a holy chant to burn away all wicked things. As she cries out, Kettle's axe begins to glow with a brilliant divine light. He looks mildly interested. Then, Aqua shouts for him to strike immediately. Though he wanted to observe the demon a bit longer, he knows this is his chance. So long, demon, he says, slashing her chest with the empowered axe. This time, the holy power rips straight through her. Cedra is in complete disbelief, realizing in her final moments that she has lost. Divine light swallows the demon, slamming her into the ground as Kettle stands over the crater, smiling. Thanks, that was fun, he says. As her body begins to fade, she chuckles. It was not pointless, she notes, because she has confirmed someone like him exists on the surface. She asks for his name, and before Aquaz can stop him, Kettle happily answers. She screams for him to shut his mouth, but it is already too late. Kettle just mutters a casual, oops, while Isidric grins horribly, sending a message to the underworld. Every single beast in hell now remembers the name of the barbarian, Kettle. Aqua nearly collapses in sheer despair. Deep below, countless demonic eyes snap open, turning toward the mortal world. That mass of eyes locks onto Kettle. He just stands there, totally confused, as a massive demonic presence manifests right in front of him. Cedric laughs, claiming the barbarian now belongs to them. Suddenly, the eye creature lunges forward, piercing right through Kettle's body. But then, total confusion sets in. They cannot break his spirit or body at all. What is this? A giant shadowy hand reaches out, plucking the beast away. Poof, it turns to dust. Back in the physical world, Kettle just blinks, completely unfazed. Touching his chest, he wonders what she actually did, as it felt like something briefly entered him. The demon's final remnant is absolutely horrified, unable to comprehend why its dark energy could not take hold. Meanwhile, Kettle casually kicks the leftover energy away like simple dust, while Aqua and Haze are losing their minds, screaming in total disbelief. Kettle, however, just stretches like he finished a light morning jog, completely relaxed as the residual energy fades away. He turns to his stunned companions with a pleased smile, asking the only question on his mind. Is the quest officially done now? Yep, it sure is for our favorite barbarian. But as they chat after the battle, word about what went down begins spreading across Barkan territory like wildfire. Newsboys yell, shouting extra about the village that went dark. People grab the papers quickly, completely shocked by the massive update. The headline drops some massive news. A demon named Idra appeared right after the whole Lich incident. Lord Barkan completely loses it, slamming his throne and demanding to know why his small land keeps becoming the center of every disaster. He can barely process how a legendary demon from the ancient records suddenly appeared. His captain warns that rumors are spreading fast, but they have one good angle to use. The official cover story claims the Sun God's Inquisitor arrived just in time to banish the demon. Barkan knows they must tread carefully now, since one wrong move could make everything worse. Meanwhile, Kettle chats with his new companion, asking why everyone seems so incredibly tense. Aquaz tells him this is an extremely serious situation, but noticing she is already leaving, he suggests she rest a bit longer, but she flat out refuses. No time to waste here. The Holy Land needs this news immediately. Kettle just shrugs and lets her go, but right as he turns to leave, she calls out, making him freeze. She bows softly, thanking him for the rescue because otherwise, she would have been demon food. Kettle, being his usual clueless self, just laughs it off. No big deal, right? He was only helping out. Then he flashes a big grin and asks, "We are friends now, right?" Aquaz is absolutely stunned. A wild barbarian and a holy inquisitor? That was definitely not on her bingo card. She reminds him that she serves the sun god, but Kettle just asks why that stops them from being buddies. That pure, honest logic completely breaks her guard. He is just way too sincere. Kettle laughs and adds, "See? It does not even matter." A tiny smile finally softens her cold, serious face. "You are right, but with the peace treaty signed, Kettle brings up another question. Is sharing your name with a demon actually that dangerous?" Aquas gets super serious again. She warns him it is all about something called a brand. She explains that demons can use a name to slap a dark, glowing mark right onto your soul. It is basically a homing beacon for every evil monster in the area. Once you get it, you need high-tier holy magic to wash it off, or you are toast. Kettle points at his own chest, totally confused, and asks if that just happened to him. Aqua shakes her head. Somehow, he avoided the brand. Still, she gives him a very grim warning. His name is probably legendary across all of hell by now. But without the mark, they only know his name, not where he is hiding. So unless he actively hunts them down, he should be fine. Kettle finds this whole mechanic pretty interesting, especially since his heavy swings did not actually delete the demon forever. Aquas explains that is just basic demon biology. Time for a quick lore drop. Eons ago, the gods created humanity, letting them live freely, but then, bizarre entities from an entirely different dimension took a sudden interest. These terrifying trespassers became known as demons, bringing absolute chaos. Finally, the gods intervened, teamed up with humanity, and kicked those dark invaders right back to their home dimension. Humans built massive temples to thank their divine saviors, enjoying a sweet era of peace. But soon, sneaky demons started clipping back into reality. To fight back, the gods shared their divine power with chosen believers, because only holy magic can actually hurt them. Kettle finally gets the trick. They cannot be killed by normal weapons, since they are cosmic outsiders. Aquas nods. They never belong to this reality anyway. Kettle remarks that it is going to be a massive headache if these monsters keep popping up everywhere. Aquas promises that high-tier demons cannot just cross over whenever they feel like it. However, she admits the barrier to the demon world is definitely cracking. Dungeon respawn timers are broken, and rogue monsters are spiking. The weird part? It all began about a year ago. Kettle suddenly freezes. Exactly 1 year ago, that was when he wrapped up his final snowy mountain quest. Before he can spiral into his thoughts, Aqua announces her departure. She warmly invites him to visit her church temple anytime, promising he will be treated like a VIP. Kettle smiles, genuinely liking the sound of that. Soon, Aqua is off in her carriage to deliver the urgent report. Still sore and recovering, she knows the High Saints must hear this immediately. Yet, one major question keeps looping in her head the entire ride. Why did her glorious sun god stay completely silent about that crazy barbarian? While Aquas wrestles with those thoughts, another character is having an entirely different kind of day. Swordmaster Kane tramps through the Grand Palace corridors, sighing heavily. Dealing with the Emperor is pure torture. Suddenly, a slick voice behind him remarks that he looks completely drained. Kane spins around to find a handsome guy with flowing dark hair and an overwhelming aura. This is no ordinary citizen. It is the legendary master of the Magic Tower, the ultimate authority of the magical society. Smirking, the Grandmaster asks what brings the great Swordmaster to court. Kane throws the question right back. The Magic Master claims it is a simple social call, while Kane admits he was delivering a debrief on his latest deployment. Now that sparks the wizard's interest. He asks about the stealth scouting mission to the demonic Forest of Silence. Hearing that, Kane's expression instantly sours. Completely. He explains it defied every law of nature and calls the place pure nightmare fuel. Inside those woods, absolute silence ruled. Even his top-tier detection spells completely glitched out. No matter how loudly he screamed, nothing answered. No noise, no rebound, just dead quiet. His elite squad vanished one by one, leaving him thoroughly traumatized. Shaking off the memory, Kane wonders aloud why the Sovereign is so obsessed with invading the demon world, chalking it up to high-status insanity. The Tower Master just grins, confessing he is also highly intrigued by that hellish dimension. Kane wants absolutely zero part of that drama, wishing he could just be a normal dude. But with a single finger snap, the Master locks them inside a massive magic circle. Welp, scratch that normal dream. Kane stares at the high-grade spatial magic, totally shocked. The Grandmaster steps closer, telling him there is no point in acting dumb. He asks if Kane crossed paths with a very unique individual, and Kane immediately realizes the gig is up. He was definitely being stalked. That Eye of Observation spell. When did you plant that tracer on me? The Tower Master casually calls it a little hobby, which only ticks Kane off even more. Finally, the wizard gets straight to the point. He wants a professional opinion on that wild barbarian from the frozen plains. Kane answers cautiously, admitting he still has not fully figured the guy out. So, the master spells it out. A. Demon Realm Barbarian who easily folded a swordmaster and crushed the Lich, Kardos. That should make the answer pretty clear. Kane is floored, having no clue that Kardos was actually defeated, while the master raises an eyebrow at his ignorance. He explains it is still classified, but whispers of Kardos failing his crucial respawn ritual are already echoing around the tower. And then, he drops the real bomb. The Grandmaster confesses he is also a Lich, and even visited his dead friend to pay respects. Kane barely flinches, dryly asking if undead skeletons can even feel grief. The Master insists that even ancient immortals like him cherish friendship. He also notes that the Lich's most valuable treasure vanished from the scene, claiming he has zero clues about its whereabouts. Brushing that aside, he looks Kane dead in the eye. Does he honestly believe some random barbarian soloed Kardos? Kane pauses, admitting it is highly likely. The Lich notes that Kane has kept the king in the dark, and Kane instantly defends his silence. He called the Emperor a complete lunatic, terrified that knowing about Kettle would spark a catastrophic war. A monster of a barbarian fighting a control-freak ruler would literally tear their entire nation to shreds. The undead master finds that chaotic future highly amusing. He asks if Kane truly believes one wild warrior can take on an entire army solo. Kane is not positive, but admits the vibe he felt was identical to the aura radiating off the Grandmaster himself. That makes the Lich's eyes flash with excitement. Are you implying he is a hero-class entity? Kane admits he cannot make that call, but the undead lord is already fully convinced that Kettle is a goldmine, sporting a creepy grin that deeply disturbs Kane. Meanwhile, the legend himself is casually strolling through the market wearing shiny new adventurer armor. Suddenly, a nearby woman trips, and Kettle smoothly catches her right before she eats dirt. He grins, asking if she is all right and telling her to watch her step. The lady just blankly stares at him. Kel instantly assumes he terrified her once more. But she actually bows, thanks him, and walks away completely calm. No screaming, no panic. Cad is utterly flabbergasted. He has never had a normal social encounter in his life. Just then, another local strolls right past without screaming, causing Cad's brain to completely short-circuit. He stands frozen, one single burning question looping in his mind. Why is nobody running away from him? A bit later, KD sits down for a nice tea break in Lord Barkin's luxury office. Barkin checks if he is doing all right after nearly getting targeted by a high-ranking demon. Kettle just shrugs it off. He does not even understand what a brand is. That level of ignorance leaves Barkin completely speechless. Sure, the guy is strong, but he is also impressively clueless. Kettle points out that the local vibe has shifted. Barkin asks if he is talking about the townspeople, and Kettle nods. The locals in this region. Barkin sighs, explaining that it is all thanks to the local gossip. Every single guard and mercenary who survived the monster siege has been telling the exact same epic tale. According to them, once Aquas collapsed, the entire army went down. Everyone except Kettle. When they woke up, his massive battle axe was radiating pure, holy light. Now, the whole town is convinced Aquas gave him a divine blessing, so Kettle finally gets the picture. He is the legendary hero who fought the demon right alongside her. Barkin apologizes, explaining the rumor spread way too fast for him to fix. Our main character finally connects the dots. No wonder everyone stopped running away from him. Barkin agrees that people do not see him as a beast anymore. Now he is the demon opponent. Kettle quietly plays with his cool new title. Demon opponent, huh? So this is what fame actually feels like. Back at the Mercenary Guild, Rosa drops a massive bombshell. He just got promoted to C rank. Kettle is absolutely stunned. C rank? That means he skipped 3 whole ranks, and Rosa insists he totally earned it. A smug grin slowly creeps onto his face. Plus, she mentions his new custom badge is being crafted right now, which gets him even more hyped. A personalized badge just for him. Rosa confirms that at C rank, you are finally treated as a true professional. He can now take on contracts in almost any major city, and even visit churches except for the imperial capital. Kettle notes that the Empire sounds incredibly strict. Rosa agrees, saying only noble-approved guests get in. Then, lowering her voice, she whispers that nobody actually knows what goes on in there. It is all creepy rumors, more mysterious than the demon realm itself. Kettle is worried, but Rosa quickly shifts back to business. As a C rank, he can take almost any contract. He can even raid a rank dungeons with a party, and our boy instantly starts dreaming about the massive rewards. The thought of epic loot and wild adventures brings back his trademark smirk. Meanwhile, Alessandro literally spits out his drink in pure shock. He cannot believe any of this actually went down. When he asks if they are safe, Kettle explains the demon is completely gone. The Inquisitor signed off on it, so they are clear. Hearing this, Hayes the cleric sighs in relief beside her teammate, Kesson. Kesson starts fanboying over how awesome the Inquisitor was, but Hayes suddenly slams the table. She yells that she never actually passed out during that crazy fight. She witnessed the entire showdown, and Kettle completely obliterated that demon. The Inquisitor only showed up late to steal the credit for a one battle. Trying to change the subject, Kesson asks what our new C-rank superstar plans to do next. Kettle shrugs it off, saying he will just keep doing the same old jobs. Kesson is totally blown away by his cool attitude, thinks he is the absolute coolest. Meanwhile, Hayes is screaming internally. Do not be fooled, she thinks. That guy is not even human. Kettle then asks what their own plans are. Kesson shrugs since their ranks are still low. He admits his original life goal was just to be a total parasite until he died, but now he actually wants to live like Kettle. Alessandro instantly roasts him for being a lazy bum. While they bicker, Kettle asks Hayes about her future plans. Flustered, she claims she will just follow her goddess's divine will. That reminds Kettle of what the Inquisitor mentioned. The moment he brings up Aqua, Hayes completely freezes. Kettle notes that apparently most of Kalasha's servants are on vacation, and only elite members are active. Hayes starts sweating buckets, nervously denying everything and claiming the Inquisitor must be mistaken. Kettle just smiles and accepts the obvious lie. Internally, Hayes is utterly terrified. She is convinced he knows her secret, wondering if he is waiting for a confession or just playing with his food. By now, she is completely petrified of him. Much later, Rosa is packing up to go home, when the door suddenly creaks open. The moment she spots a pair of muddy, worn-out boots, her soul leaves her body. Great. Overtime. A hooded old man enters with a quest. Suppressing her intense desire to scream, she politely asks what he needs. The old man clears his throat, explaining he wants an escort for himself and a young girl. Rosa starts taking notes. 2 clients. Got it. And the destination? He drops a bomb, the capital of Dean Tveharian. Rosa freezes. An escort mission to the capital from this tiny backwater town is absolutely insane. Her warning bells go off immediately. The guy talks like royalty, wears dirty rags, and masks his face. Still, business is business. She accepts the ticket, but first, she demands some ID. The mysterious old man quietly slides a metal token across the wood. Rosa's jaw drops. It is an exclusive guild token, essentially a VIP golden ticket. Once verified, she gets right to the point. The cost. The old man reaches deep into his cloak and presents 1 single gold coin. Rosa looks at the coin, then looks at his face. For this much, they can afford exactly 1 guard. The old man gasps. Only 1? Rosa points out this is a treacherous, month-long journey to Dean Tveharian. He pleads for at least 2, but Rosa sighs, saying she could maybe find some cheap rookies. But a reliable fighter costs C-rank money. He begs for someone truly capable, so Rosa remains firm. For 1 gold, he gets 1 solid fighter. No exceptions. Her patience is officially gone, and she wonders why he is so incredibly desperate. Still, she cuts him some slack since remote quests are hard to sell anyway. She agreed to post it, but once he leaves, she realizes the gold coin was filed down to hide its origin. Oh, this is major trouble. Later, the old man knocks on a secret door. A soft female voice asks who is outside, and he replies, "Your loyal retainer." Ah, classic secret royalty stuff. A gorgeous blonde princess named Elaine opens up and welcomes Aaron inside. She anxiously asks for updates, and Aaron shares that the guild accepted the post. She sighs with relief, but then asks the ultimate question. How many guards did we get? Aaron avoids her gaze, admitting they got exactly 1. Elaine goes quiet. Aaron begs for forgiveness, explaining they are broke, but Elaine whispers, it is fine. Aaron starts blaming himself for getting scammed earlier, and they try to reassure one another, though both are utterly heartbroken. Soon, they just break down sobbing together. Seriously, someone give these poor kids a break. Elaine asks how long it will take to hire a guard, but Aaron has no answers. Exhausted, she suggests they sleep on it for now. Aaron bows, drowning in guilt. Another stressful night passes as their food supplies continue to drop. Aaron beats himself up, but Elaine gently cuts him off. None of this is his fault. Aaron warns they cannot alert the local lord. Elaine nods, knowing even hiring 1 single bodyguard is already draining their entire wallet. Then she reminds him why they fled their kingdom. Surrounded by shadows, they could not tell friend from foe. Aaron apologizes again for his weakness. Elaine asks if Dean Tveharian is truly safe, and he nods. Its king swore to shield her, even though harboring them puts a massive target on his back. Then he drops the heavy truth. She has to survive, no matter what. She is a royal princess in hiding, and if she falls, their entire empire falls with her. Still, she worries. Can they truly trust a dirty mercenary? Erin holds her hands, promising that their gold will secure someone honorable. She blushes, imagining a handsome, chivalrous knight coming to save her. Oh, sweet summer child. She has absolutely no idea what is coming. Meanwhile, our heroic savior Kettle is just sprawled on his bed, dying of boredom. He starts thinking about his old comrades back in the frozen plains. They were the only ones who did not treat him like a plague. He sighs, assuming they are still out there doing stupid stuff. Suddenly, a realization hits him. Is his main quest finally done? That blue system window that guided him here has completely vanished. He thinks back to his first brutal survival mission in that snowy nightmare. Back then, that screen was his only friend. But once he escaped the ice, everything went quiet. Now that things are peaceful, he is getting restless. He sits up straight as a sudden thought strikes him. Wait, was the system exclusive to that frozen wasteland? Looking out the window, he decides it is irrelevant. Thanks for the memories, system screen, but from now on, I will live this life my way. The next day, he struts back to the guild in brand new gear, and Rosa has a spicy request ready. A sketchy escort mission. She is practically glowing with relief that someone finally accepted. So, Kettle asks, what makes this one so special? Rosa explains it is a simple D-rank escort. Just a young woman and an old guy needing a ride to the capital of Dig Confrain. Easy money, right? Kettle is not convinced, and Rosa warns him this trip is long. He has to handle everything alone. Sounds annoying, but the pay is insanely good. Of course, high pay means high danger. The way Rosa lays it out makes that pretty obvious. She looks dead serious and tells him straight up, this request feels wrong. Reject it if you want. But Kettle just breaks into a massive grin. To this absolute maniac, that is exactly why the job sounds so fun. Rosa is completely speechless. She has no idea how his brain works. Kettle looks back at the paper, and the name Dion Tarion catches his eye. It immediately clicks. He remembers Melina Akasha, that noble lady he rescued in the frozen wasteland. She invited him to visit her kingdom and gave him her family crest. Grinning like a madman, he slams the table and accepts the quest. Right then, a flash blinks in his eyes, and boom, that familiar blue system window pops back up. It finally returned, and it brought a brand new quest, escort the clients today, and Tavarian. Kettle is completely shocked. Why now? Rosa cannot see the screen. To her, he is just staring into blank space, so she asks if he is all right. Elsewhere in town, an old man named Aaron rushes inside to find a young woman. Elaine panics, thinking their enemies caught up, but Aaron clears his throat to deliver some amazing news. The only C-rank mercenary nearby took their job. Hope instantly floods Elaine's face. A C-rank fighter. Aaron says they meet tomorrow. Meanwhile, Kettle is still trying to decode the mysterious system screen. Sitting alone in his room, he wonders why the quests froze when he left the demon realm, only to reactivate now. Maybe the system was never locked to that frozen wasteland. Or, maybe some massive conspiracy is unfolding. The next day, a storm rages as Elaine and Aaron walk to the guild. Elaine nervously wonders about their escort. In her head, she imagines a handsome, battle-scarred hero exuding pure, cool energy. She is positive he will be absolutely magnificent. Then the door swings open. Rosa greets the newcomer, and Elaine looks up, expecting her prince. That fantasy dies instantly. In the doorway stands no charming knight, but a hulking, terrifying monster of a man with glowing white eyes. Kettle introduces himself, and Elaine instantly freezes. The absolute terror is too much. She faints right there, and Aaron barely catches her. He glares at Kettle, demanding to know what he is. Kettle actually finds this reaction pretty hilarious. It has been a minute since anyone was this terrified of him. He was actually starting to get used to the hero treatment. Aaron panics, turning to Rosa to ask if this monster is seriously their guy. Rosa nods and introduces their designated bodyguard, the barbarian Kettle Nim. Aaron looks like he is about to have a heart attack. A barbarian? He instantly begs for a replacement. Rosa's expression turns ice cold. Is he seriously doubting her guild? Aaron tries to explain himself, but Rosa shuts him down. If they do not trust the guild, the deal is dead. As they bicker, Keel just sighs. What a massive headache. Suddenly, a voice interrupts them. She accepts. Elaine is back on her feet, taking control. Aaron tries to object, but she has already decided. She walks up to Keel and introduces herself as Elaine. That highly uncomfortable handshake makes it official. The journey starts with Keel leading, while his terrified clients walk about 50 paces behind him. Eventually, Keel stops and looks back. He points out they are trailing way too far behind. For their own safety, shouldn't they walk closer? Instead, they both wave their hands frantically, claiming they are totally fine. Since the road is empty, this distance is perfect. Keel just shrugs. If they want to be weird, that is their choice. He turns around and walks. Elaine watches him, wondering how life got so messed up. Her mind slips back to last night at the guild. Keel had introduced himself with a huge grin, completely oblivious to their sheer terror. Elaine felt like her heart would explode. He smiled warmly, telling them their safety was guaranteed. All she could squeak out was a tiny yes while screaming internally. Honestly, she still thinks hiring this guy was a massive mistake. When night falls, Keel decides it is time to set up camp. He looks back at the duo, asking how they are holding up. It is too pitch black to continue, which explains why they departed so late. Aaron nods nervously, practically hugging Elaine's arm. By now, Keel gets that the prejudice against barbarians is real. He reaches into his pouch, pulls out a magical tool, and tosses it. Instantly, a massive luxury tent unfolds. Aaron and Elaine freeze in absolute shock. An artifact? How does a dirty barbarian own one? Keel just blinks. To him, it is no big deal. He got it by completing countless high-tier quests. That casual flex only confuses them more. He offers them the tent, but Elaine asks where he will sleep. Keel shrugs it off. Sleeping under the stars is his daily routine. He promises to stand guard all night, casually mentioning he once survived a whole month running from monsters with zero sleep. Seeing their horrified faces, he smiles and tells them to rest. Elaine quickly insists they must take watch shifts too, pretending she is just worried about his health. Keel tries to decline, but they refuse to budge. He assumes he is failing to earn their trust, never realizing they are terrified he will murder them in their sleep. The next morning, Elaine crawls out looking like a zombie. Aaron is not doing any better, looking half dead right next to her. She clutches her stomach as it growls like a wild beast. Keel hears it and tells her to wait right there while he whips up breakfast. Elaine just stares, bewildered. Then, to her absolute shock, this giant barbarian starts cooking like a Michelin star chef. She cannot believe her eyes. A cooking barbarian. Aaron, saliva already dripping, asks if he actually knows what he is doing. Keel shrugs, explaining it is just a hobby. Back in the frozen lands, everyone ate raw monster meat, but he taught himself to cook actual food. What began as survival evolved into serious culinary skill. The fantasy ingredients were so toxic they almost ended him, but through sheer trial and error, he mastered them. He proudly boasts that cooking here is child's play compared to back home. Before long, he serves up shrimp pasta that looks like a masterpiece. Elaine panics. She claims she hates greasy food and forces down dry, leathery jerky instead. Aaron awkwardly follows suit. Kel does not mind at all. He just smiles, says more for him, and devours the pasta. Elaine watches, drool forming, but her fear wins. She just cannot trust a barbarian's cooking. By the third night of their journey, Elaine is suffering badly. Her feet are raw and blistered. Aaron rushes over, panicking. "Princess, are you okay?" For 3 days he has been tending to her. Growing up as a pampered princess did not prepare her for this brutal wilderness. She weakly wakes up, smiling, insisting she is fine. Instead, she frets over him, pointing out that he must be totally exhausted from staying up to guard them. Aaron smiles gently, claiming he is perfectly fine, joking that old men barely need any sleep anyway. Elaine shoots him a grateful look before passing out again. Watching over her, Aaron's face turns serious. He views her as his own daughter, silently swearing to protect her even if it costs his life. The next morning, the rich aroma of fresh breakfast fills the air. Aaron and Elaine sit there looking miserable, chewing cardboard rations while Kettle whips up another gourmet feast right before their eyes. Finally, Elaine snaps and leaps up, shocking Aaron. She announces she is stepping away, and Kettle bluntly asks if she needs to use the bathroom. He even apologizes, completely throwing her off. She stands there trying to process this. Something about him simply does not fit her beastly expectations. Without a word, she walks away. Watching her go, Kettle finally speaks up. He knows they do not trust him, but he is their bodyguard. Offering a perfectly seared steak, he begs for just a sliver of trust. Then he quietly adds that he is human, too, and his feelings get hurt. That line hits deep. Aaron instantly feels a wave of guilt. Flustered, he says he totally gets it. Kettle offers the juicy venison steak once more. Aaron is powerless to resist. One look at that glistening meat, and his resolve crumbles completely. Meanwhile, Elaine heads down to the stream to wash up. There she is, all alone, choking back tears while forcing down some dry, miserable jerky. She's absolutely starving, her legs are screaming in pain, and she's at her limit. But she pushes on, telling herself Aaron has it worse. Well, that noble thought instantly shatters when she peeks through the bushes. There's Aaron, happily stuffing his face with delicious venison. To her, this is the ultimate betrayal from her most trusted knight and protector. Feasting on food from the enemy. She softly calls his name, leaving him utterly crushed and caught red-handed. Aaron drops his fork, panicking, and blurts out, "Princess, this isn't what it looks like." While Kettle just watches, he observes the chaos with pure amusement. Elaine marches right over, grabbing Aaron by the collar. "What part isn't true? We agreed to stay on guard around barbarians." Aaron tries to plead that maybe, just maybe, Kettle isn't actually bad, but Elaine won't hear any of it. That's when Kettle speaks up, looking genuinely surprised. "So that's why you wouldn't touch my food." He finally pieces it all together. The split night watch was for the exact same reason. "You didn't trust me either, did you?" The heavy silence settles in, and both knights realize they completely messed up. Kettle can only sigh. He knows people despise his kind, and honestly, some barbarians probably earned that reputation. He also knows that just claiming he's different won't convince anyone. But then, a brilliant idea hits him. A sly, mischievous smile creeps across his face. He looks right at them and says, "There's just one thing you've got wrong." And with that grin, he drops the ultimate bombshell. "I am not a barbarian." Just like that, Kettle starts spinning his tale, leaving his clients completely speechless. To add more drama, he adds, "Technically, I was born one, but not raised that way." Aaron and Alan just stand there, heads spinning, trying to process this. So, Kettle casually invents a tragic backstory about his tribe being wiped out and a noble adventurer raising him all while thinking with a completely straight face. "I made every single word of that up, but hey, it works." His main point is simple. He might carry barbarian blood, but his upbringing was totally civilized. He plays the part of a sincere victim flawlessly. Even though he knows it's absolute, utter nonsense, the trick works perfectly. Both knights look deeply embarrassed. Aelin thinks back to how horribly they treated him, judging him entirely on a single label. She begins to realize he has probably faced this kind of prejudice his entire life, yet he still treated them with kindness. Overwhelmed with shame, she offers a genuine apology, admitting her fears blinded her. Kettle simply smiles softly, but inside, he's celebrating, got them. While Alan is still lost in her feelings, he kindly offers his hand. She looks confused for a brief second but decides to take it, instantly shattering the awkward tension. Aelin finally smiles back at him, but nearby, an incredibly powerful figure is lurking the Tower Master Lich. He is using a tracking spell to watch them from afar, though he can't hear a word. Still, he decides Kane was right. This barbarian is incredibly bizarre. Kettle seems way more civilized than the others, prompting the Lich to move in for a closer look. Huge mistake. The instant he shifts, Kettle's eyes sharpen. Did he actually detect me? The Lich freezes in shock. Aelin watches as Kettle suddenly stops dead in his tracks. He stares deep into the dark woods and warns, "Someone's there. Wait here." Before she can even utter a word, Kettle leaps, closing the massive distance in a literal heartbeat. He appears right above the stunned Lich. Panicking, the Lich raises a heavy fire shield just as Kettle crashes down. That barrier was supposed to be completely unbreakable. But as the thick dust clears, Kettle is standing there without a single scratch. Before the Lich can react, Kettle slams his face into the dirt, warning him to stay still. The tough guy act evaporates instantly. The terrified Lich blurts out the first thing that comes to mind. "I admire you, Sir Kettle." This leaves our main character completely baffled. Shrugging, he gets the fake name Patrick, and drags him. He hauls the guy back to camp like an annoyed stray cat. Alan is utterly confused, and Kettle just shrugs, saying, "No clue." He was lurking in the bushes, then claimed to be my #1 fan. Dangling by his collar, Patrick starts rambling about how Kettle is his absolute hero and role model. Naturally, he's lying through his teeth. His inner thoughts reveal he just wants to get closer to his target. Kettle doesn't buy a single word of his story. He definitely can't let this self-proclaimed fan wander free without knowing his true motives. And that's when a brilliantly chaotic idea hits him. Grinning, he mutters, "This should work." The poor Lich is left sweating, wondering what on earth is about to happen. Kettle's master plan? He literally ties up one of the strongest mages alive. The Lich spent ages crafting this disguise, and now this. He spent so much effort on his spy mission, only to end up completely immobilized by regular rope. Kettle gives the knot one last satisfying yank, looking incredibly proud. "Yep, that'll do." He turns to the others. "All right, let's head out." Kettle starts dragging his hostage along like a very confused dog. Patrick's face drains of color. Being hauled through the dirt like common baggage is absolutely destroying his pride as a legendary mage. He lets out a defeated sigh. Nothing this humiliating has ever happened to him. Still, there is one silver lining. He gets a front row seat to study Kettle up close, remembering the report from Swordmaster Kane. It detailed Kettle's absurd speed and the raw physical strength to shatter complex spells with his bare fists. Even inside this weaker human vessel, Patrick believes he can handle any superhuman, but now, he really has to wonder if Kettle is actually hero tier. At last, Alan speaks up. Lord Kettle, there's something I must tell you. Kettle glances back with a smirk. So, ready to talk? She's stunned that he already knew she was keeping secrets. Her suspicious behavior during the night watch gave it right away. Kettle tells her it was obvious, leaving Alan looking totally busted. He adds that he completely understands why trusting a stranger was difficult. Deeply moved, Alan offers a heartfelt apology, fully prepared to reveal the truth. She even says he can abandon the quest if it's too dangerous, but just as she begins to explain, Kettle suddenly raises his hand. Wait, someone is coming. Instantly, the nearby bushes rustle, making Alan flinch. Out steps a pair of heavily armored knights. As more troops surround them, Kettle glances at Alan. Looks like they're here for you. She completely freezes. The lead knight steps forward, introducing himself as Captain Lucentio, and addresses her as the Princess of Lucian. Watching from the ground, the bound mage smirks. Realizing things just got way more entertaining, Captain Lucentio steps closer. We have been searching everywhere for you, Princess. Your father is incredibly worried. So please, come back with us. But instead of feeling relieved, Alan looks absolutely petrified. The captain turns to Kettle, offering a cold nod. Thanks for keeping our runaway princess safe. We'll take over. But Alan answers with a single firm word, no. The knights are stunned. Clenching her fists, she demands, Who are you? Lucentio looks confused, but she snaps again. Who are you, really? As he tries to restate his name, she cuts him off. Don't mock me. I know the real captain, and you are not him. She accuses the impostor of seizing the castle and replacing everyone she loved. Tears streaming, she demands to know what they did to her parents. Meanwhile, Patrick quietly casts a secret diagnostic spell from behind his back to inspect the captain, only to find the man is entirely human. Alan keeps screaming, You want to devour me too, and steal our entire kingdom, don't you? Though crying, her voice remains steady. I won't let you. I will avenge everyone who has vanished. The captain listens to her wild accusations in total silence, then lets out a heavy, tired sigh. He turns to his men. You heard her. The princess is delusional. Aelin explodes in rage at the insult, but he calmly tells her to think logically. Is she truly claiming the entire kingdom changed while only she stayed sane? Could that even be possible? For the first time, her absolute certainty begins to crack. He reaches out a hand. Your Highness, let's end this nightmare and come home. Completely cornered with nowhere left to run, Alan's hope crumbles. She whispers a desperate plea, and suddenly, a calm voice cuts through. What do you think you're doing? Aelin looks up to see Kettle stepping directly between her and the knights. The captain glares, ordering him to move, but Kettle just smirks. Sorry, can't do that. Lucentio's glare intensifies as he commands him once more to step aside. Kettle doesn't budge an inch, not happening. The captain's expression turns dark. If you won't move, I will make you. He charges instantly, swinging his massive broadsword directly at Kettle's head. But Kettle casually stops the blade by catching the commander's face, throwing him aside like yesterday's trash. The knights stare in absolute horror. Commander! They turn to Kettle, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing. His response is deadpan. He attacked first. My job is simply to eliminate threats to my employer. Nearby, Lucentio struggles back to his feet. He stumbles up, clutching his stomach from that massive throw. Realizing muscle is useless, he changes tactics, claiming the princess is completely insane. But Kettle shuts that down instantly, saying, You still do not get it. My job is to trust my employer. Watching him, Elaine feels a spark of hope return. With talking over, Lucento growls that they are all completely insane. Kettle just smiles. That is not your call. Turning to a very confused Elaine, he points out how these knights arrived without warning. She still looks lost, so Kettle lays it out simply. They literally appeared out of thin air. You and I can tell this completely breaks the world's logic, and Aaron and Patrick realize it too. Kettle glares at the silent knights. Lucento tries to brush it off, cutting himself off to bark a demand. Stop stalling and hand over the princess. Kettle narrows his eyes. Since they will not talk, he makes a decision. He is taking her to Doi and Tavarian himself. Hearing this, Elaine tears up. Someone is finally standing up for her, unlike her own family. Lucento, however, has had enough. His hand grips his sword, ready to kill. Kettle calmly warns the others to step back. Elaine trusts him, but begs him to stay safe, knowing these are the kingdom's elite. Lucento orders his men to draw their blades. Kettle just grins, looking genuinely thrilled. Watching from the sidelines, Patrick checks their stats. They are second-tier magic users. But Lucento is first-tier. First-tier elite. The command is simple, kill the barbarian if necessary. The knights charge, trapping Kettle in a storm of flashing steel. He stands still as purple energy explodes outward. The real battle begins. Kettle goes completely wild, dismantling the knights one by one with brutal, calculated strikes. A massive shockwave erupts from his body, throwing several heavy knights backward. As they crash into the dirt, Kettle sighs, calling group attacks annoying. Losing his mind, Lucento screams at his men to keep pushing. All 6 charge him at once, but it is useless. Kettle becomes a human hurricane, snatching the knights right out of the air and tossing them like ragdolls. Finally, Lucento charges in himself with a glowing green blade. He roars for Kettle to die, making Elaine scream in terror. She thinks her protector is finished, but as the sword strikes down, boom! Kettle catches the glowing blade with his teeth. Lucento completely freezes. With a purple flash in his eyes and a loud crunch, Kettle bites the enchanted sword in half. The shockwave blasts Lucento backward, while Kettle barely flinches. Standing his ground, he asks if they want another round. The remaining knights are already trembling on their knees, completely broken. Lucento immediately orders a retreat, and they vanish into thin air. Kettle turns around, telling Elaine he will help her, but only if she stops hiding things and gives him the full truth. She nods instantly. Meanwhile, Patrick is having an absolute breakdown. That sword, Sedora, was supposed to be completely unstoppable, yet Kettle caught it with his bare teeth. This body isn't just physically tough, it literally cancels magic. Kettle is an absolute enigma. Later, huddled around the campfire, Kettle demands the whole story. Aaron looks grim as he drops a massive bombshell. Their entire kingdom has been replaced. By the time they realized it, the entity had already taken over everything. Kettle connects the dots, that is why they ran. Aaron admits that if they had stayed, they would have been replaced next. He explains that this creepy phenomenon started exactly 1 year ago. That specific detail makes Kettle pause. 1 year ago, that matches the exact warning from the Inquisitor of Quays. The Demon Realm seal was leaking, dungeons were popping up, and monsters were invading. It all started a year ago. The timing lines up way too perfectly. Even that weird guy from his last quest said something similar. He dismissed it as nonsense back then, but maybe he was wrong. Aaron adds that they never located the source of this distortion. They brought in her elite mages and mystics to help, but every single one was replaced. Intrigued, Kettle asks how they spot the fakes. Aaron admits he cannot explain it, he just senses it. Something in the air around those copycats feels deeply wrong. Even when they act perfectly normal, that creepy vibe remains. At first, he did not believe the princess either. Not until Impossible, things started happening right before his eyes. Aaron explains it began when he was managing the castle staff, specifically a shy maid named Kathy, who was absolutely terrified of everything, especially ghost stories. He used to tease her constantly. But then, one day, Kathy suddenly stopped reacting entirely. No screaming, no terror, nothing. At first, he figured she just grew up, but the real red flag came later. Part of her job was cleaning the giant castle statues, which she absolutely hated. One day, a massive stone monument fell directly on her. She survived, but her reaction was deeply disturbing. Zero fear, she only worried about getting in trouble for breaking the statue. Right then, Aaron realized this was not the real Kathy. Kettle gets it. A girl afraid of her own shadow is suddenly unfazed by death. Fascinating. Aaron nods. She looked identical, but the real Kathy was gone. He quickly started testing throughout the castle, discovering that most of them were fakes. When Kettle asks if that sparked their escape, Aaron nods. They knew they were next. So, Kettle asks the obvious next question, why travel to Doi and Tavarian? Elaine explains that only their king can perform a ritual called the Human Declaration, stemming from an ancient legend when humanity coexisted with other species. A man wanted a kingdom solely for humans, making a deal with a nameless god. He was granted a unique power, the ability to instantly distinguish humans from monsters. With that gift, he established the Kingdom of Tavarian. Elaine adds that only the founder's direct descendants can trigger this declaration. Kettle grins, amused that such a convenient power actually exists. This world is never boring. He agrees the plan is solid. With tearful eyes, Elaine asks if he is truly willing to keep helping them. He smiles warmly, telling her nothing has changed. He gave his word. He will escort her, period. Flooded with relief, Elaine thanks him deeply, promising to grant absolutely any wish he desires once the quest is complete. Kettle smoothly accepts, telling her he is definitely looking forward to it. This blank check immediately sends Aaron into a panic. Later that night, Patrick sneaks over to Kettle with a heavy question, does he actually believe her? Kettle glances over. Not entirely, but she is not lying. Patrick counters that those knights they just thrashed were definitely human. Kettle calmly nods, agreeing with that assessment. Patrick then warns him of what is truly at stake. You and I know he is basically declaring war on an entire kingdom, and this secret could easily get him killed. Is this really just for a contract? Kettle pauses, admitting that is only half of it. A massive, wicked grin spreads across his face as he drops the real reason missing out on something this wildly chaotic would be a tragedy. Is doing this purely for the thrill. Patrick just stares, genuinely wondering if he is traveling with a hero or a complete psychopath. He then turns to Carol, asking if he is also just bound by a job. Carol looks down, admitting it is partly that, but honestly, this whole situation is just too fascinating. His eyes spark with excitement. He is not here for gold. Patrick is losing his mind, asking if they are literally risking their lives for cheap entertainment. Kettle's eyes glow a dangerous purple as he grins. What more of a reason do you need? Carol is equally hyped about the mystery. An entity that can perfectly replace a human? Absolutely fascinating. Patrick, however, has a much darker thought. He desperately wants to dissect Carol to see how his bizarre powers actually function. The next day, their journey resumes. Giving up on trying to make sense of these absolute lunatics, Patrick decides to just sit back and enjoy the show. Suddenly, an arrow slices through the air, but Carol casually plucks it out of the sky. While Elaine and Aaron instantly panic, Carol just smirks. Well, ambush tactics are not a bad idea. A second later, 4 knights drop from the trees. Carell casually tells them that is still the wrong answer, releasing a shockwave that blasts all 4 away. They crash so hard their armor cracks open, and one coughs up blood. The beaten knights run for their lives, calling him a literal monster. Carell actually looks happy. Elaine calls him amazing, but he just shrugs and asks if they were just super weak. Elaine hesitates, asking why he even lets them live. She thinks he is holding back to protect her, but Carell says that is not it. With a sly smirk, he looks forward because he needs to test a theory. Right on cue, another squad of identical knights appears, demanding the princess. Carell just watches them without a single care. They literally act like brainless video game mobs. In a flash, he grabs one by the throat while the rest are already defeated. Checking the armor, he realizes he broke this exact suit hours ago. The party is totally confused, but Carell points out the matching dents on the chest plate. It is the exact same armor. Fascinating. He drops the guy and lets them retreat. Elaine is utterly lost, so Carell drops some wild logic on her. Their shattered gear was fully repaired. Wynn notes that high-tier magic like that requires an entire day and a massive ritual. This was way too fast. Carell agrees, because something else is going on, and he has finally cracked the case. The truth is simple. These knights are basically respawning. They dissolve into red spirits, then return fully healed. Carell decides he needs one final test. Right on cue, the knights show up again, screaming the same dialogue. Carell completely ignores them. Tension. Instead, he turns to Aline. Focusing on his final test, he swings his massive axe, and the blade is instantly soaked in blood. Standing over the lifeless body, Carell notes that his axe met actual resistance, just like hitting a normal human. He looks at his terrified clients and claims this is enough proof. Aline steps forward, deeply disturbed, but Carell instantly cuts her off. Can you do it? Immediately, Aline remembers watching those knights from her balcony, especially a young soldier named Kay. She remembers how he changed into a stranger right before her eyes. Watching him die completely shattered her soul. She remembers screaming for them to stop, but the corrupted knight just kept demanding her surrender. Back in the present, everyone is completely frozen, trying to process the horror. Winwin is left trembling in shock, and Aline's panicked reaction gives Carell his answer. Smiling, he declares his theory confirmed. That night around the campfire, Aline finally speaks up, stating the obvious fact. They really did die. Carell stares into the flames and grimly agrees, while Elaine shivers as she recalls their glowing purple eyes and creepy grins. Carell remembers hearing about how Cat feared death, wondering if it is because these monsters simply cannot die. Whatever they are no longer human. He hands the shaking princess some hot soup, asking if she knows what is going on. She sadly shakes her head, while Aline quietly whispers that coming back from the dead is not actually living. Still, she has one theory. They might be from the demonic realm. Suddenly, Carell's face turns dead serious, his entire vibe shifting. The demonic realm? He asks. Aline nods, describing it as a twisted place beyond human understanding. If these immortal enemies came from there, it would honestly explain everything. Right then, Carell receives a sudden quest notification. He wonders if his game system only triggers for demonic threats, but Aaron shuts that down, arguing that demons cannot just cross into our world. Carell looks skeptical while Aaron claims no demon has ever crossed over in recorded history. Carell just smirks, pointing out that is just a myth, not actual proof. Aline reminds everyone that bizarre things have been happening lately. A stressed Aaron admits she's right, and Carell asks if those space distortions from last year affected the demonic realm as well. The princess listens, gets dead serious, and agrees it is highly possible. Carell wonders what horrors leaked through, while Patrick quietly rolls his eyes at Carell's hypocrisy. The next morning, their annoying stalkers return. The knights are back, loudly demanding the princess once more. Carell does not care one bit. In fact, he is actually smiling like he is having a blast. Stepping past another body, he notes they have died 3 times now, always coming back fully healed. Aline clenches her fist in absolute disgust, calling them putrid freaks. Carell treats it all like a game, wondering what their true goal is. Elaine guesses they want to destroy her kingdom, grow their army, and conquer the entire continent. Carell disagrees, noting it is probably not that simple. If they just wanted her kingdom destroyed, they could have killed her ages ago. They had endless opportunities, yet they never attack at night when humans are vulnerable. As he talks, he casually slaps another knight aside. If they are immortal, why use hit-and-run tactics? These things do not act like mindless beasts, he tells the shocked princess. They act like they still think they are human. With a scary grin, he announces a genius plan, making Aline and Aaron panic. Carell's plan is simple: kidnapping. He snatches one of the knights, ties him to a tree, and ignores his hollow threats. Clapping his hands with a fake smile, Carell says it is time to chat. Even Patrick can only watch, convinced Carell is completely out of his mind. Winwin completely loses his temper, demanding to know what he is doing. Carell calmly explains they are just having a chat. That makes Winwin totally snap, screaming about talking to a literal monster. The tied-up knight looks genuinely confused, asking who is a monster and insisting he is human. Aline yells at him to shut up, calling him disgusting for acting human. She watched him die and respawn over and over. There is zero chance she'll believe his lies. Yet, the knight desperately keeps protesting that they are not monsters. He begs the princess to listen, which completely pushes Aline over the edge. Screaming, she tells him not to treat her like some lunatic. She accuses them of eating her parents, terrified they want to turn her into a monster too. The knight quickly denies it, saying she will stay exactly as she is. That bizarre phrasing makes her freeze. What does he mean by that? Carell and Patrick exchange sharp looks. The knight admits he doesn't know the master plan, but is certain both of them must return to the kingdom. Aline turns away, muttering that there's no point listening to a monster talk crazy. But before she can walk off, Carell stops her, a sudden look of sheer realization on his face. I get it, he says. Then he drops a chilling question on Aline. Do you actually think you're still human? The question hangs in the air, leaving her baffled. She scoffs, asking if that isn't obvious. Carell's eyes glow, as he softly says, I see. Aline gets defensive, assuming he's calling her some sort of beast. But before she can finish her sentence, a wet, sickening tear echoes. Her eyes widen in pure terror as a hideous, scaled, fleshy arm bursts right out of her chest. Nobody can comprehend what is happening. Carell just watches with grim certainty while Aline stares down in absolute shock at her own body. Was that entire nightmare real? Princess Aline suddenly wakes up gasping. Aaron rushes over to check on her, but she is completely dazed, having no clue where she is. Then, the horror hits her. She recalls Carell's terrifying words and checks her chest, fully expecting a gaping hole. Suddenly, Carell's voice cuts in, asking if she is finally awake. He stands there with arms crossed while she panics, asking what happened after that monster tore through her. Carell calmly explains that she sustained a fatal wound that would kill any ordinary human, yet she is completely fine. While she tries to process this, Carell drops the ultimate bombshell. Her body fully regenerated, just like those undead knights. He even checked Aaron, and he's exactly the same. The brutal truth finally sinks in. Aline, you are one of them now. A bit later, Carell steps outside and spots Patrick sitting by the fire. Patrick immediately asks how the princess is taking the news. Carell mentions she's breaking down, and Patrick sighs that she is coping way better than expected. Then, he gets straight to the point. Since when did Carell actually know her secret? Carell admits he had suspicions, but when did he know for sure? Right from the start, he sensed a weird, familiar energy on Alan and Aaron from day one. Something Patrick's high-level magic completely missed. And that wasn't the only clue. Alan refused to eat his food, living almost entirely on jerky for days. Carell points out that a pampered, sheltered princess couldn't survive on sheer willpower alone. Patrick is genuinely impressed. Just then, Aaron calls out for Carell. Alan steps out of the tent, looking surprisingly calm and determined. She announces their next destination is Talang in the Atherin Kingdom. Carell smiles, happy she finally made up her mind. But, right before they move, he speaks directly to the empty forest. Come on out, he calls. He didn't actually sense any magic, he just trusted his gut. Carell grins, loving that he was right. Suddenly, a figure appears, out of thin air. An old wizard. Aelin and Patrick are completely stunned, but Karel is just amused by the fancy invisibility trick. The old man introduces himself as Adamant Raja, chief mage of Lutein Kingdom. He claims he's here to bring them back. Karel immediately grips his massive axe, but the old mage tells him to relax. Turning to Alanine, he says it is time to return to the palace. He warns her little trip could trigger a massive diplomatic war. A single tear falls as Alani asks why any of that matters anymore. "I'm just a monster acting human," she cries. The wizard repeats that word, monster, but reassures her that change doesn't mean losing who she is. Looking right at her, he says only one thing is different. Adamant calmly explains that Aelin is simply becoming more complete, promising she is still their princess. It sounds super sweet at first, but then his eyes turn dead cold. He declares her real fate is to become their perfect queen. Yeah, right. A perfect queen sounds exactly like a mindless puppet ruler. Keel suddenly brings up the famous ship of Theseus' paradox. As the old wood rotted, every single plank was replaced with a stronger piece. Eventually, not a single original part remained, so Keel throws out the ultimate brain teaser. Is it actually the same ship anymore? Then, he delivers the punchline. The kingdom of Lutein is basically one giant ship of Theseus, and Alan instantly gets the dark hidden meaning behind those words. Then, the old mage steps forward, releasing an incredibly heavy pressure. Looking directly at her, he demands she come home where she belongs. Alan can barely breathe, completely frozen and terrified, with no clue what to do next. That's when Kettle leans in with a wicked grin. "Want me to make this guy disappear for you?" The mage glares at Kettle, asking why a fellow monster is trying to stop him. Kettle doesn't even blink. Who cares? He couldn't care less about the mage's identity. Stepping right in front of him, he makes his stance clear. He is only here to protect his boss. Meanwhile, Aelin is having a total existential crisis, realizing she might not even be human anymore. She feels like a total fraud, just an empty shell. But Keo shuts that down with a firm no. Aelin breaks into tears as he says the exact words she needed to hear. To him, she is the only Alan that matters. He didn't care about her past. The girl who hired him and traveled with him is his actual boss, and that's who he's protecting. Finally, he leaves the ultimate choice to her. "What do you want to do, Alan?" She hesitates, clutching her chest tightly as pure fear and anxiety wash over her. But then, something clicks. Her eyes instantly sharpen with pure determination. She declares, she absolutely refuses to go back. Keel grins, totally satisfied. His boss has spoken, and that is final. The old mage's face darkens as he sighs, muttering that this is a tragedy. Keel happily agrees. Then, he barks an order. "Patrick, get them out of here." The Lich leads Alan and the rest of the crew away from the battlefield. Once they are safe, the old mage sneers, noting the barbarian looks way too happy. Keel replies with a massive, savage grin. Oh, he absolutely is. He can feel this old geezer is a top-tier magic user, and he is dying to see his skills. Adamant's robe glows bright blue as he warns he will regret this. The mage gathers a ridiculous amount of energy, chanting an ancient spell that literally warps the air around them. But before he can even finish, Keel vanishes in a flash of purple and appears directly in front of his face. Boom. One single punch, and Adamant literally explodes into a shower of blood. Kale shakes his bloody hand, casually mentioning that the best way to deal with mages is to kill them before they can cast. Suddenly, the splattered blood begins swirling into a strange red mist. Right on cue, the mist regenerates the mage, who now looks utterly terrified and confused. He couldn't even react to how fast Keel moved. Keel calmly wonders if there's a limit to this auto-revive trick, then casually stomps the earth. Massive stone pillars shoot upward, instantly impaling the old man. Keel watches, slightly surprised that actually worked. Adamant is ripped to shreds again, but his eyes flare with pure hatred as he retaliates. Giant wooden roots burst from the dirt, wrapping around him to form a massive wooden golem. But then, the golem suddenly turns to ash, exploding into a towering inferno that engulfs everything. Observing from afar, Patrick notes that Adamant is burning through an insane amount of mana. Then it clicks. Adamant has infinite mana because his body and magical pool regenerate at the exact same time. Still, Patrick knows this fight is already over. The old man picked the wrong opponent. The massive fire spell explodes, but as the smoke clears, Keel has completely vanished. Before the wizard can scan the area, Keel appears right behind him with a glowing fist. Finally, the old man realizes this guy isn't a human, he's a complete monster. Meanwhile, Keel is just getting warmed up, thrilled to see if all high mages are this fun. Adam's eyes widen as Keel lunges forward like a blur. In a split second of purple light and blood, a savage backhand completely decapitates the wizard, sending his head flying. Keel stands over the lifeless body, staring at his bloody knuckles with a puzzled expression. The blood feels kind of weird. Suddenly, the decapitated body dissolves into glowing red particles, reforming into a fully healed adamant who screams in pure frustration, demanding to know what Keel actually is. He is furious. This entire battle feels like a cruel joke to him. Keel just gives him a relaxed, totally mocking smirk, claiming he is just an average barbarian. Annoyed, Adamant declares the warm-up is officially over. The earth begins to tremble as he channels a massive wave of magic. Floating into the sky, surrounded by a raging storm of energy, he promises to unleash his true power. Keel only grins, eager to see what the old guy can do. Suddenly, Adamant traps Alan and the rest of the group inside a deadly, howling barrier of magic. Keel calmly watches the display. Okay, this guy is no rookie. He's a real pro, capable of summoning natural disasters on a whim. Even Keel is genuinely impressed by the show. He actually thanks the old man for the entertainment, but decides it is time to wrap things up. Taking a slow step forward, he stomps. Boom! A colossal shockwave of purple energy violently explodes outward, shattering the magical storm and sending Adamant flying back in sheer disbelief. Meanwhile, the rest of the group is perfectly safe behind the barrier, watching with their jaws dropped. Patrick is utterly baffled. Keel just did that without using an ounce of mana. Was that seriously just a physical stomp? The blast leaves Keel standing in the center of a massive crater, completely untouched. Adamant is absolutely terrified. His grand, ultimate spell was wiped out by a random barbarian. The old wizard shakes with anger, his massive ego completely crushed. This makes no sense, he screams, losing his mind. But then, a terrifying dark purple aura begins to rise from Keel, completely shattering the wizard's remaining sanity. Keel punches the earth, unleashing a second, blood-red shockwave. The mage is instantly vaporized into mist, but quickly pieces himself back together. He admits Keel is strong, but screams that he is still immortal. Keel nods, agreeing normal physical attacks won't get the job done. He slowly opens his hand, revealing a jagged, dark, crystalline shard resting on his palm. How about we try this instead? He asks with a smirk. The mage stares, totally clueless, as Keel closes his hand. Instantly, the entire atmosphere violently ruptures, creating an epic explosion that obliterates the terrain. As the dust settles, Keel is just standing there covered in light smoke, looking slightly surprised. The shard is gone, crushed into fine, glittering powder. Adamant's eyes widen in absolute terror because he knows exactly what Keel just destroyed. Holding up the dust with a dark grin, Keel asks if this is his actual soul. That, driven to the edge, he screams in absolute rage. Keel just narrows his eyes, asking if he really wants to keep going. He cold-bloodedly warns him, continue this. And Adamant's life is forfeit too. The mage stands silent inside the fading red mist, his creepy energy slowly dispersing. But before vanishing, he drops a final threat Keel is going to pay. And just like that, the battle is over. Left completely alone in this desolate wasteland, Keel finally regroups with his team. They hit the road once more, and before long, the colossal, intimidating walls of Darren loom right ahead of them. But Patrick stops at the gates, announcing he has to split since he is a foreigner. Keel feels bad and apologizes, but Patrick just laughs it off, saying the journey was a blast. Hoping to cross paths again, Keel gets a cryptic reply. Patrick says they will meet way sooner than he thinks. Shrugging it off, Keel approaches the entrance, only for a guard to instantly start yelling. The guard barks at our giant barbarian to freeze and back off. Keel doesn't even blink, classic profiling, right? But before things escalate, Aelin steps up, commanding them to open the gates immediately. She proudly announces her status as the first princess of Luten, demanding an immediate audience with King Barbossa. The guards are absolutely flabbergasted, and yep, her royal flex works perfectly. Cut to a few moments later, and Keel is living the high life in a ridiculously fancy guest room. Escorting a princess definitely has its perks, and this bed is pure heaven. With the escort duty officially wrapped, he expects a standard mission success. Sure enough, a blue system window pops up, 758th quest complete. But then, a weird reward notification appears. Usually, he doesn't get direct rewards like this, but a sudden knock shatters his train of thought. It is Alan, the princess he just saved. She asks to chat, and Keel welcomes her inside. Sitting down, Keel asks about her plans. Aelin says her royal audience is scheduled for tomorrow, hoping it resolves their issues. But Keel is skeptical. This is usually when the real nightmare begins. Aelin shares his anxiety. After a tense silence, she looks at him, calling his name softly. She asks the big question, does he know what actually invaded her kingdom? Keel closes his eyes, thinking. He admits he has a solid theory, but decides to flip the script, asking her what she thinks her home is turned into. Instead of giving a verbal answer, Keel pulls out something else. It is a shimmering, rainbow-colored shard. He explains that this is the literal, physical form of the entities that replaced her people. Aelin can only stare in absolute confusion at the glowing object. He mentions he had to forcefully compress the energy just to make it visible to the naked eye. He wonders if she even comprehends this, but to his shock, Aelin gets it immediately. She compares it to mana or aura, invisible forces that only become tangible when densely concentrated. Ah, right. Keel realized he forgot this fantasy world already deals with unseen energies all the time. Then, his warning truly sinks in. He tells her to imagine a human body as a collection of tiny particles, meaning her citizens had their brains and blood entirely swapped out by these things. Horrified, she recoils in pure disgust, wrapping her arms around her trembling body. Keel asks if she is all right, knowing how brutal that truth is. Shaken, she asks if these particles are dangerous. Keel gives a reassuring smile, explaining they are currently dormant and easily destroyed by raw force. For simplicity's sake, he calls them nano-individual tiny organisms that merely mimic a human's physical shape. That is why basic physical attacks do not kill them. It is like trying to slice water in a lake. When Aelin gasps the word immortal, he nods, which explains why they do not comprehend death. But she notices a major flaw in that theory. She confesses that she actually fears dying, which means she shouldn't belong to their species. Keel agrees, proposing a wild alternative. Perhaps she is mutating. That leaves her completely speechless. Later that evening, Keel is relaxing on a massive, incredibly plush bed in the Grand Palace, wondering if Aelin has finally met with the king yet. The prospect of meeting a real, legendary fantasy king blessed with divine powers brings a smirk to his face. He is curious. Right then, the door flies open, and a gruff knight barks a command. The king wants to see the barbarian. A knight named Maximus escorts Keel through the grand corridors, warning him to show utmost respect if he values his neck. Keel just chuckles, promising to behave. Entering the throne room as Maximus announces him, Keel stops in mild surprise. Not only are Aelin and King Barbossa waiting for him, but there is another familiar face standing right beside the throne. The king speaks up, asking if this is the barbarian who kept the princess safe. Surprisingly, Keel bows with immaculate etiquette, introducing himself with perfect manners. This totally throws the king off guard. The king clears his throat awkwardly before continuing, noting that the princess highly praised him for being quite different from typical barbarians. Keel just flashes a smug grin, saying he hears that a lot. Then his eyes lock onto the royal advisor. Wait, isn't that Patrick? Aelin quickly gets flustered, blurting out that this gentleman is actually the revered Tower Master. Meanwhile, Patrick starts sweating bullets, attempting to play it cool despite panicking internally. Patrick claims Keel must have him mistaken for some other traveler. Grinning, Keel decides to play along, offering a polite apology for the mix-up. Patrick forces a sigh of relief. He is utterly baffled how Keel saw right through a top-tier disguise that fully alters looks, mana, and even personality after just one short meeting. Yet, Keel's silent, knowing glare keeps him sweating. Maybe that flawless disguise is not as foolproof as he thought. Opting not to blow his cover, Keel lets it slide as Aelin anxiously changes the subject. She nervously asks about the official status of her people. From his throne, the king delivers a heavy verdict: they are indeed human. His ancestral law dictates that if someone truly believes they are human, they are, which means Aelin, Aaron, and even their prisoner are legally human. Hearing this, Alan's face falls. The king explains these beings ultimately just wanted humanity. Keel grins, finding this twist incredibly amusing. But Keel cuts to the chase, asking why he was summoned to the court. The king confesses he is aware of the nano, and the danger is already at their doorstep. His own close companion was taken. Both his friend and their child were completely consumed by this silent plague. Patrick chimes in, stating the magic tower is barely holding them off, and soon, the entire continent could be completely replaced. Staring directly at him, the king says he heard Keel possesses the key to destroying these imposters. Keel pauses, letting the tension build, before a dangerous, slow grin spreads across his face. A mission of pure extermination. Right on cue, the blue system screen flashes a brand new quest: confront the entities of the demon realm. Yep, so much for his well-deserved vacation. Suddenly, Parm is dragged in. The bound knight screams frantically in front of the court. The king, Maximus, and Patrick watch closely to see Keel in action. Patrick, an actual lich, admits his high-tier magic couldn't crack this mystery. All analysis and truth spells came up empty, so he leaves it to the only man who has fought them. Having raised a powerful barrier, Patrick signals Keel to unleash his full power without hesitation. Parm desperately shrieks that he is human, while Keel remains totally serene. Looking down at the trembling prisoner, he contemplates the most efficient method to break him. Making up his mind, Keel unleashes his presence. Pure, unfiltered killing intent floods the room, a suffocating pressure, promising absolute doom. The knight's face contorts in absolute dread. For once, a creature that doesn't comprehend death is forced to face its terror. This sheer malice is so overwhelming it sends shivers through the entire room. Even Patrick, a legendary lich, starts sweating bullets from just the residual spillover. Under this crushing aura, the knight begins to break. His mind and body completely shatter, and finally, a dark, shimmering energy begins oozing out of him. Keel grins. It worked. The hidden parasite is being forcefully dragged out of its human shell. A sinister, shadowy silhouette with piercing white eyes rises from the body. Aelin gasps in horror, the true face of the nano. Smirking, Keel casually greets the entity, asking if they can have a little chat. The court falls dead silent as the entity actually considers his offer. After a tense pause, its glowing eyes narrow with wicked interest. Fine, it says, instantly posing a question. The alien thing is genuinely confused why they're saying no. Alan screams back like, "Duh, you literally ate everyone we know." But the brainless parasite honestly thought it was doing them a favor by making them perfect. Kettle notices everything and steps in, realizing this weird monster is just obsessed with getting Alan back because its tiny brain cannot handle rejection. The parasite tells him to shut up, but Kettle keeps his cool, playing it incredibly smooth. He tells the beast that if it plays nice and explains things, Alan might actually swipe right on them. And get this, the brainless creature actually falls for the bait. It starts bragging about its tiny population and how they desperately need human bodies to multiply. But Alan and Aaron's stubborn resistance is totally ruining their master plan. Kettle keeps digging, casually asking what they even want with a giant army anyway. The nano proudly boasts about bringing supreme perfection to this messy world. Kettle just smiles, summing it up nicely. You guys basically want to delete humanity. The monster honestly sees nothing wrong with that. It demands that they all join the collective. Kettle turns to Alani, raised eyebrow, asking for her final answer. After a dramatic silence, her eyes flare up with pure determination. She gives them a hard pass. No way is she joining a bunch of ugly parasites. The nano's body wriggles in absolute fury, screaming that Kettle tricked him. Our boy just smirked, saying he never technically lied. Enraged, the beast lunges. It screeches about eating everyone alive, but thud. It slams face first into an invisible wall. The smug tower master just stands there with folded arms, asking if it really thought they were that stupid. Trapped like a bug in a jar, the parasite can only scream useless curses. Patrick casually snaps his fingers. Playtime is officially over, folks. He got the tea, and now it is time to wrap things up. He squeezes the barrier into a tiny glowing marble, sealing the beast right in his palm. Free science specimen, let us go. The king immediately turns to Kettle, warning him that if these pests multiply, the world is toast. He asks straight up if Kettle can go exterminate them. Kettle does not even blink. Easy money. He is ready to roll out this second. There is just one tiny, slightly awkward issue he needs to point out. Walking to their castle is going to take forever. But our resident overpowered mage steps in, telling him to chill. He can teleport them instantly, and Kettle is totally down. Patrick smirks, admitting he was crashing this party anyway. But right before they fast travel, Alan halts the group. She steps up with serious main character energy, demanding to tag along. Aaron immediately loses his mind and protests, but she refuses to back down. She needs answers. She wants to know if she is going to lose her mind before she kicks the bucket. She has got to see the truth with her own eyes and figure out how to remain herself. After she begs the barbarian and the master wizard to let her join, Kettle just shrugs. Why not? Aaron, the ultimate simp, immediately blabs that if his precious princess goes, he is going too. Patrick just chuckles, warning them not to do anything stupid while he boots up a massive teleportation spell. A blinding flash of light erupts, pulling the squad into a glowing blue magic circle, heading straight for enemy territory. In a literal second, they materialize right in front of the massive gates of Lutein Castle. Patrick smirks and drops the ultimate line. All right. Shall we begin?